Xia Qingyu begs the celestial Shen Xi to save her husband, Xianxia, from a fatal curse. But the price of divine intervention may be more than any mortal can bear. Leave a like and subscribe to walk this path. Boom, boom, boom. In the starting location of the god realm of absolute beginning, ash-gray dust filled the sky and space was torn apart as it was distorted to the point where it looked like surging ocean waves. Even the tiniest corner of this area was filled with a destructive power that any ordinary person could not fathom. Jasmine and Keizai combined their strength as they engaged Xianxia Yinger in fierce combat. The properties and attributes of their attacks were completely different. The core of the heavenly slaughter's divine power revolved around compressing one's power to the maximum before instantly killing the opponent in an instantaneous burst of power. However, the heavenly wolf's divine power was peerlessly strong, and it created gigantic swathes of destruction. Even though it was the first time that they had combined their powers, due to the fact that they were cooperating with the person who was most important to them and closest to their hearts, the two sisters were able to coordinate their attacks with matchless synergy. But Xianxia Yinger's power was simply far too dreadful. Even though Jasmine and Keizai were using all of their power, it did not pressure her in any way. Besides the time when Jasmine had severed several strands of hair and a corner of her mask, they had not left any other marks on her body. Even her golden robes were still completely immaculate. Heavenly Star Lamentation. As the azure wolf howled, the heavenly wolf's sacred sword fell to the earth like a star falling from the heavens, as a vast and boundless sword might cause the space around it to sink in. As she entered the heart of the heavenly star sword domain, Xianxia Yinger's golden hair was dancing in the air, but her body did not move an inch. A golden halo that was not too large appeared out of thin air as it directly blocked that sword might which filled the skies, preventing it from pressing down any further. Xianxia Yinger's eyes flashed as a huge golden hand suddenly emerged from that golden halo and directly pierced through the heavenly star sword domain as it dove towards Keizai's chest. Keizai? Jasmine had originally intended to attack Xianxia Yinger, but upon seeing that, the expression in her eyes abruptly changed, and her body gave a sudden whirl. Her red figure hurriedly swept forward, as the god-slaying blade was forcefully shifted from an attacking stance to a defensive one. Bang! After a mere instant of resistance, the god-slaying blade was fiercely blown to the side as that golden beam of light directly smashed against Jasmine's chest. A spurt of blood shot out of Jasmine's mouth like an arrow as she flew away, as if she was a withered leaf blown by a strong gust of wind. "Big sister!" Keizai let out a startled cry as her complexion changed drastically. She did not rush over to check on Jasmine's condition. But at this moment, the malicious energy that she had firmly suppressed in the depths of her heart instantaneously rushed straight to her head. As her blood crazily surged throughout her entire body, the image of an azure wolf bizarrely appeared behind her back, and when it opened its eyes, it was the scarlet-red eyes of a wolf. Xianxia, her voice trembled like the arm which was holding the heavenly wolf's sacred sword aloft. That voice, which had originally been as clean and pure as spring water, now seemed as if fresh blood from hell had been poured over it, as it became incomparably sinister and shrill. "I will kill you." Xianxia Yinger, who was just about to advance, came to a sudden stop, because the pressure that was coming from Keizai had suddenly multiplied at this very moment. It had well and truly multiplied. Xianxia Yinger, who had still been idly sauntering about all this while, suddenly felt a clear, oppressive feeling wash over her. The high and mighty heavenly wolf had suddenly morphed into a demon wolf of hatred and resentment, and those blood-colored wolf eyes resembled two scarlet blood moons which hung in the blue sky. Blood moon, immortal, slaying sword. BZZ. In that instant, all the light and sound in that world completely and bizarrely vanished. Everything within the starting location of the god realm of absolute beginning, from the floating clouds to the ground, from the gigantic boulders to the tiniest grain of sand, all of them froze in that instant. In the next instant, all of these things were completely obliterated, and the only thing left in the area was endless bits of detritus chaotically floating around in a broken world. Immortal slaying sword formation. Astonishment flashed across Xianxia Yinger's face. Her golden figure swiftly retreated, and with a light flourish of her hand, she drew a long and slender golden soft sword from her waist, and when it swayed, it seemed to undulate like a golden serpent. But when it flicked out straight, it shot out golden beams of light that were able to pierce through the heavens and earth. The golden sword flickered and swayed, its trajectory light and easy, Yet it was able to easily tear a hole in the immortal slaying sword formation that was raining down from above, however. In that same instant, Jasmine's figure crazily flew towards Keiji's side. Blood trickled down from the corner of her lips and her red dress was broken and tattered, but she extended a hand and firmly latched onto Keiji's arm. "Let's go!" Boom. Following a huge explosion that swallowed the heavens and the earth, the sword might of the immortal slaying sword formation exploded outwards, turning the starting grounds of the god realm of Absolute beginning completely upside down. The space within this realm resembled ice that had been completely shattered as incomparably dreadful holes began to appear in it. In the distance, earth-shaking roars filled the sky and continued for a long while as countless wild beasts were startled by the disturbance. Xianxia Yinger's golden figure slowly walked out of the middle of that destructive power which wantonly rampaged across the sky. Even though the very sky and ground had been engulfed by this destruction, there still was not a single trace of dust or dirt on her body. However, her vision or spiritual perception could no longer detect the existence of Jasmine and Keiji. HMPH, it seems like I have underestimated that wolf pup after all, she muttered to herself. After that, she floated off the ground and began to fly towards the exit of the god realm of Absolute beginning at a leisurely pace. She did not seem to have any intention to pursue Jasmine and Keiji. All those years ago, even though Jasmine had been afflicted by that devilish poison, she was still able to escape the pursuit of most of the southern divine region. If the heavenly star god truly wanted to leave, then no one would be able to restrain her. Even though the heavenly slaughter star god possessed the weakest combat strength among the 12 star gods, her ability to conceal herself, her spiritual perception, her explosive power, and her speed were unmatched in this world. A terrifying star god who could completely and perfectly immerse herself in the darkness, before suddenly dealing you a fatal blow. And even if she missed, she could immediately flee far away in a single instant, not allowing you to chase or pursue her in any way. As powerful as Xianxia Yinger was, she still had no choice but to fear and respect that power. This was also the reason why she had created such an elaborate scheme all those years ago, and had not even hesitated to go to the southern divine region just to get rid of Jasmine. Xianxia Yinger left the god realm of Absolute beginning, returning to the boundless and empty ether which existed outside the god realm. Gu Zhu soundlessly approached before coming to a stop behind her. His pale white hair, which resembled sticks of withered grass, was still frosted with fragments of ice. "Miss, the heavenly slaughter and heavenly wolf have already felt. Should we continue to chase after Xianxia and Xia Qingyu?" Gu Zhu asked in a placid tone. "Where did they go to?" Xianxia Yinger asked. "To the south." HMPH, Xianxia Yinger gave a cold snort. "There is no reason for them to head in that direction, it is merely a feint. They have definitely changed direction long ago, fleeing back to the eastern divine region." "Then, miss, there's no need for us to chase them any longer." Xianxia Yinger's pupils constricted slightly, as a dark and sinister golden light flashed in her eyes. "I marked Xianxia with the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, so there will be someone who will obediently bring me to him in order to plead with me." The 5 words, Brahma soul death-wishing mark, actually caused Gu Zhu's old eyes to shudder intensely for a second. It was only after several breaths that he finally said, "But what if he is determined to die, then what do we do?" "If he dies, he dies." Xianxia Yinger gave a cold and indifferent laugh. "The heavenly slaughter said something to me just now. The divine power of the evil god is not something that can be stolen, and I actually rather believe those words as well. If Xianxia comes to beg me to release him from that mark, that would naturally be the best outcome. But if he wants to die, then what loss do I suffer anyways?" Gu Zhu replied. "But once Xianxia and Xia Qingyu return to the eastern divine region, the eternal heaven god realm, star god realm, and the moon god realm will know very quickly that it was Miss who acted against Xianxia. This is especially concerning, given that the eternal heaven god emperor has clearly expressed his desire to protect Xianxia. If he sees the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on Xianxia's body, I'm afraid that—" "Heh, you think that I'm afraid of him?" Xianxia Yinger did not look the least bit worried. On the contrary, she gave a cold laugh instead. "If Xianxia was his son or his direct disciple, then I'd get it. But even though he greatly admires the current Xianxia, that feeling is limited strictly to admiration. Other than that, Xianxia is someone who has nothing to do with him. So do you think that old geezer Eternal Heaven will fall out with me over a genius that actually has nothing to do with him?" Gu Zhu lapsed into deep silence before he slowly nodded his head. This old one has overthought the situation. Xianxia Yinger turned around as she swept an indifferent gaze over Gu Zhu's body before abruptly saying, "Cold energy. There is no one who uses cold energy among the star gods, so who did you duel with?" Gu Zhu replied. "She wasn't a star god. She used extremely heavy cold energy to forcibly seal away her features and her aura. When she fought against this old one, she only used pure ice profound energy, and she did not use a single profound art." "Oh, so this means she used extreme measures to conceal her own identity." Xianxia Yinger's brows faintly knit together as her brain swiftly raced to find someone in the Eastern Divine region who could not only face off against Gu Zhu, but who also cultivated ice profound energy. That is indeed correct. However, this old one is guessing that she is the Western Divine region's Blue Dragon Emperor, Gu Zhu said slowly. "That's not possible." Xianxia Yinger categorically rejected that notion with a shake of her head. The dragon race is naturally a proud and haughty race. They would definitely not to stoop to actions such as concealing their own identity. Given the kind of person the Blue Dragon Emperor is, it is even less possible that it could be her. When Xia Qingyu and Yun Qi fled from the Moon God realm, it had not been pre-planned, and no one had any prior inkling that this was going to happen. Even our idea to give chase was a spur-of-the-moment thing. So even if Yun Qi truly does have a deep and mysterious relationship with the dragon race, it was also not possible for them to know about this in advance and to so coincidentally arrive in this place. No, the only way someone that could have chased us all the way here was if that person was from the Eastern Divine region. These are things that this old one is naturally aware of, Gu Zhu said with a sigh. "But miss, you have missed out on something. This person was a woman, and she did not use any profound arts, and by merely relying on her own ice profound energy, she was able to forcefully delay this me until now. If she had used all of her strength, it is very possible that she is above this me." Xianxia Yinger's brows faintly twitched. Her gaze swept towards him before she asked, "Uncle Gu, within the Eastern Divine region, exactly how many people are worthy enough for the words above you to be used on them?" Gu Zhu replied, "Besides those old ancestors who have hidden themselves away from the world, the only people whom those words can be used on are the 4 god emperors and Miss herself." "That is to say that another person on the level of a god emperor has appeared in our Eastern Divine region, yet we were completely unaware of it?" Xianxia Yinger asked in a weird voice. Gu Zhu did not reply because that was something that was categorically impossible. The strongest user of water profound arts in the Eastern Divine region is the glazed light realm's Shui Qianheng. There are very few people who cultivate the ice element, and the strongest should have been in the Snow Song realm that Yun Qi came from. Even though the Snow Song realm's realm King Xunian is a middle realm king, her cultivation is extremely high, and she was a level 4 divine master all those years ago. So right now, even if she broke open the heavens, she would only be a middle stage divine master at best. Xianxia Yinger muttered to herself while deep in thought. Finally, her gaze grew cold and focused. Could it really be the Blue Dragon Emperor? Once all other possibilities were exhausted, even if the only remaining possibility was a rather awkward fit, it was still undoubtedly the answer. No matter whether it was Xianxia Yinger or Jasmine and Keijai, none of them had realized that the direction that Xia Qingyu and Yun Qi had fled towards was not the south or the east. It was actually the west. With the celestial time jade as a power source, the vanishing moon celestial palace could maintain its maximum speed for a very long time. As time flowed by with an agonizing slowness, the vanishing moon celestial palace had finally arrived in the biggest and strongest divine region in the god realm, the Western Divine region. The god realm had 40,000 star realms, and the Western Divine region was comprised of 16,000 of these star realms. Among the 17 king realms within the god realm, the Western Divine region had 6 of them. The strongest race in the universe, the dragon race, was concentrated within the Western Divine region. The dragon god realm, where the monarch of the dragon race ruled, and where the dragon gods themselves stayed, was the head of the 6 king realms of the Western Divine region, and it was also the ultimate existence in the entire god realm, an existence that all 16 other king realms had to bend their heads to. The 6 realm kings of the king realms of the Western Divine region were known as the One Monarch 5 Emperors, who lorded over the Western Divine region, and 4 of them belonged to the dragon race. Once they had entered the Western Divine region, the vanishing moon celestial palace's speed did not slow down in the slightest. Under Xia Qingyu's guidance, it sped at maximum speed toward the ultimate existence within the entire God realm, the Dragon God realm. Xia Qingyu had never been to the Western Divine region, much less the Dragon God realm. So all of these things were explained to her by the memory fragments that she had received. She had never rejoiced in such a manner over the fact that she had these memory fragments on any other occasion before this current moment. We're going to reach there soon, we're going to reach there soon. So just hold on for a little bit longer. Xia Qingyu looked forward as she softly muttered those words. During this period of time, Xianxia had been in his own hell the entire time, and this was also something that tormented Xia Qingyu all the way as well. Finally, following the change of the world in front of her, an aura which contained a formless dragon might rush to meet them, the Dragon God realm. The Dragon God realm was incredibly vast, and not only was it the biggest king realm, it was also the biggest star realm in the entire God realm. Its aura was exceptionally primitive and dense, and it was actually rather similar to that of the God realm of absolute beginning. Furthermore, the main difference between it and the king realms in the Eastern Divine region was that the Dragon God realm was a completely open king realm. Besides the Dragon God domain that lay at its heart and several forbidden grounds, one could freely come and go as they pleased. Because of this, an innumerable amount of profound practitioners traveled to the Dragon God realm every year. Once they had arrived in the skies above the Dragon God realm, Xia Qingyu did not have any spare time or attention to bask in this place's aura or admire the scenery. Her heartstrings not only did not loosen, but instead they had silently grown even more taut. This was because she was unable to be sure that this person could really save Xianxia, and even if she really could, whether she would save Xianxia was another question altogether. Even seeing her was as difficult as trying to scale the heavens. Because the place that she was in was the largest forbidden ground in the entire Dragon God realm. It was a place that even the Dragon Monarch could not come and go as he wished, forbidden land of Samsara, which harnessed and controlled the power of reincarnation in the era of the ancient gods, was located. At that time, the Dragon God race was also the guardians of the well of transmigration. After the vicious battle between the gods and the devils, the Dragon God race had gone extinct, and the well of transmigration had also been destroyed, becoming a dead well. But as it was the hub that had previously controlled the reincarnation of all gods, it had still been perfectly maintained to this day. However, the reason this place would become the Dragon God realm's greatest forbidden ground was not only because of the existence of the well of transmigration. Rather, it was because of a single person. The vanishing moon celestial palace swiftly flew downwards, leaving all of the sights and sounds behind it in a trail of dust. Those profound practitioners and flying dragons which were nearby merely felt a strong gust of wind brush across their bodies, but they did not even catch the shadow of the vanishing moon celestial palace. As it shot through most of the Dragon God realm, a blazing white light suddenly appeared on the light curtain within the vanishing moon celestial palace. That was a gigantic barrier which had completely encased a vast and quiet land. The white light that radiated from it was completely flawless and without blemish, and within that pure white light lay a purity that permeated one's heart and soul. As Xia Qingyu's eyes gazed upon the white light that radiated from the barrier, she clearly felt her heart and soul regain much of its calm. It was as if a cluster of warm and gentle light had started shining in her soul, placating and comforting her thoughts and mind. This mysterious sensation caused Xia Qingyu's eyes to grow focused as she quickly grabbed Xianxia and got to her feet. At the same time, she said in a hurried voice, "We're here, we're here. Xianxia, hurry up and give your Dragon God mark to me." Several breaths later, one could make out the complete shape of a barrier from within that white glow. It was at that moment that an incredibly severe and imposing roar suddenly rang out from the space in front of them. Who goes there? Who actually dares to intrude upon the forbidden land of Samsara? During that fierce roar, the shadows of two huge dragons suddenly appeared in front of the vanishing moon celestial palace. The two enormous dragons which had appeared were thousands of meters long. Their dragon eyes were furious, and their huge draconic bodies completely barred the way of the vanishing moon celestial palace. Two terrifying draconic auras bore an incredibly dreadful suppressive feeling as they landed heavily on the two people. It caused Xia Qingyu to feel as if a mountain range was pressing down on her, completely taking her breath away. The guardian dragon gods of the forbidden land of Samsara. The wrath of a true dragon was not something anyone could stop, So Xia Qingyu naturally did not force her way in, and it was at this moment that the Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace's speed started to slow down. After that, she carried Yun Qi as she left the confines of the Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace and descended from the sky, landing on the ancient and thick ground below her. She yelled at the two huge guardian dragons in an anxious voice. "I greet the two senior dragon gods. I am Xia Qingyu of the Eastern Divine Region's Moon God Realm, and I have come here to specially beg for a meeting with Senior Shen Xi." The three words, Moon God Realm, did not even cause the other party to be moved in the slightest. What replied to Xia Qingyu was the startling and earth-shaking sound of thunder. The dragon monarch has personally given this command. Not a single soul is allowed to step into the forbidden land of samsara. Quickly depart, and if you dare to take even a half step forward, no matter who you are, we are to kill without. Before the word mercy had even come out of his mouth, the thunderous voice of the guardian dragon god seemed to suddenly get stuck in his throat as it was completely cut off. Even that heavy oppressive might seem to grow weaker for an instant. Xia Qingyu raised up her right arm, and in her hand, she held a dragon-shaped precious jade that shone with a white luster. This is the dragon god mark given by the dragon monarch himself. So I beg that the two senior dragon gods allow this junior to enter the forbidden land of samsara. The draconic eyes of the two great guardian dragon gods were filled with astonishment, and their auras swiftly dissipated. It was not because they had withdrawn their draconic might. It was because the tepid, oppressive might, which belonged to the dragon monarch himself and radiated from the dragon god mark, had formlessly obliterated their own auras. Within the dragon god realm, gazing upon the dragon god mark was the same as gazing upon the dragon monarch himself. The dragon monarch had held his position for tens of millennia, but he had only ever bestowed 3 dragon god marks throughout his entire reign. Even though the 2 of them were the dragon monarch's guardians, even they had not personally gazed upon a dragon god mark. But that oppressive might which belonged to the dragon monarch, an oppressive might which radiated from the dragon god mark, was something that absolutely could not be faked. In this entire universe, one would not be able to find a single person with enough guts to even try to make a counterfeit dragon god mark. Both great guardian dragon gods exchanged looks, but following that, a white light flashed in the sky. 2 huge dragon images simultaneously disappeared as the 2 dragon gods assumed human shape and descended to the ground in front of Xia Qingyu and Yun Qi, their eyes fixed on the dragon god mark in Xia Qingyu's hand. While a dragon was in human form, the energy consumption and physical burden upon their bodies were extremely small. Furthermore, it was also much more convenient to move around in. Thus, once a member of the dragon race could transform, they would normally spend their days in human form. The majority of the other beast and demon races besides the dragon race also did the same. The 2 guardian dragon gods, who had assumed human form, merely looked like a pair of absolutely normal young human beings. They were wearing the exact same dragon scale divine plate, and it was impossible to tell whether it was something that was forged or if it had naturally been birthed by their powers. As their eyes finally left the dragon god mark, they once again took the measure of Xia Qingyu and Yun Qi before finally fixing their eyes upon Yun Qi's body. As this time, Yun Qi was in a state of unconsciousness, but these occasional bouts of unconsciousness were undoubtedly the best possible situation for him right now. But his complexion was extremely dreadful, causing their hearts to violently wrench. This person, could he be that youngster from the Eastern Divine Region who received a dragon god mark from the dragon monarch half a month ago? Yun Qi, the other guardian dragon god, followed up those words immediately. The dragon monarch had desired to take in a foster son within the Eastern Divine Region, and he had even bestowed a dragon god mark upon that person. This had been extremely big news in the dragon god realm, so how could they not know of it? That was right. Even though Yun Qi had only been in the god realm for slightly more than 3 years, his name had already reached the ears of even the people living in the Western Divine Region. He is that Yun Qi. The dragon god mark is here, and so there is no way that there is any falsehood either. Xia Qingyu said in an urgent voice, "There is an extremely malicious curse afflicting him at the moment, and the only person in this universe who can lift it is Senior Shen Xi. So I beg for the 2 senior dragon gods to accommodate us." The guardian dragon god on the left replied, "Gazing upon the dragon god mark is the same as seeing the dragon monarch himself. So if the both of you desire to enter the forbidden land of samsara, we are powerless to stop you. But a word of advice for you both before you enter. Even if you can get past us, there will still be no way for you to truly enter the forbidden land of samsara. The other guardian dragon god chose this moment to speak in a solemn voice. The two of us have guarded this place for tens of thousands of years. Besides the dragon monarch and a handmaiden that she has recently chosen, there hasn't been anyone else who has truly stepped into the forbidden land of samsara. Unless she chooses to leave the forbidden land of samsara of her own volition, meeting her is something that is absolutely impossible. It is best to not attempt to force the issue. The dragon god mark was in front of them, so this was advice that they were giving from the kindness of their hearts. However, Xianxia was already well aware of everything that they were telling her. After all, even at the level of the moon god emperor, she was still regarded as an extremely unique existence. Those at the level of the god emperors knew every single bit of information about her. It was to the point where if they were able to meet her just once, even the god emperors who lorded over the primal chaos dimension would feel as if they had just received a sudden and unexpected favor from a superior being. It was also because of all of these things that meeting her would truly be harder than scaling the heavens. In fact, it wouldn't be the least bit exaggerated to say that it was the most difficult thing to accomplish in this world. Xianxia put away the dragon god mark before she picked Xianxia up and quickly prepared to leave. I thank the two senior dragon gods for acquiescing to my request, but I need to see her. She swiftly floated up as she flew toward the world in front of her. Upon hearing her words, the eyebrows of both great guardian dragon gods knitted together tightly. They unconsciously moved to restrain her, but once they thought of the dragon god mark, they immediately stayed their hands as they could only helplessly repeat the words of serious advice that they had given before. Remember, you must definitely not incur her wrath, otherwise. Even the dragon monarch himself won't be able to save you. But Xianxia's figure had already flown far into the distance, and no one knew if she had heard what they had just said. The forbidden land of samsara was vast, yet there was only a single person who lived in this vast land. It was also due to this person's existence that it had become the largest forbidden ground in the entire dragon god realm. Even the dragon monarch could not come and go as he pleased. These were words that were not the least bit exaggerated, so if that was even the case for one such as him, what about the rest of them? If not for the dragon god mark, even if the moon god emperor himself personally came, he would definitely not be allowed to pass, much less Xianxia. However, even if one bypassed the two great guardian dragon gods, one would only enter the borders of the forbidden land of samsara. If one truly wanted to enter the forbidden land of samsara, then even the dragon god mark itself would be of no assistance whatsoever. Xianxia's speed was extremely fast, and it was clear that her heart was burning with anxiety and urgency. But she felt an extremely clear change happen in front of her. The further forward she went, the cleaner and denser the aura of nature became. All of the elements in this place were incredibly mild and gentle. There were light gusts of wind, the slow and relaxing sound of flowing water, and even the earth smelled so nice that one could become intoxicated by it. As she continued forward, the aura of nature became so mild and gentle that it gone beyond Xianxia's imagination. Xianxia had also discovered many changes in her surroundings. With a single glance, she could actually see cloud and mist shrouding the area, making it seem as if she had strolled into a celestial abode. The clear and melodious sounds of birds chirping and butterflies flitting through the air rang in her ears, and Xianxia thought that she could even faintly hear the joyous whispering of the plants and flowers all around her. It truly seemed as if she had stepped into an illusory fairy tale world, a place that was not stained by the mortal world's noise or foulness, a place that seemed not to contain even a trace of dispute or evil. Gradually, Xianxia's body unconsciously grew relaxed, and it felt as if her heart was being gently caressed by the purest spring water, causing her to become much more calm and composed. Bang! As Xianxia swiftly flew forward, her body heavily smacked against an invisible barrier. She grabbed hold of Xianxia as she bounced back several steps, and she very nearly fell to the ground. The world in front of her was completely shrouded by mist, and she could only barely make out the gently swaying shadows of the flowers and plants around her. Even given Xianxia's vision, she still could not see anything, and her spiritual perception could not spread out in front of her at all. It was as if that was a world that mortal man could never ever reach. The forbidden land of samsara. Xianxia knew that even if she was 100 times stronger than she currently was, There was absolutely no way she could force her way through it, and even if she was able to, she would still be absolutely unable to do so. Her chest rose and fell as she did her best to suppress the swelling agitation and emotion in her heart. After that, she slowly sank to her knees. Junior Xia Qingyu of the Eastern Divine Region and her husband Yun Qi begs to see Senior Shen Xi. Her beautiful eyes and voice were filled with a deep supplication and desire. However, the world around her remained unchanged. A fantastical pure world of singing birds and fragrant flowers, but there had been no reply. Xia Qingyu raised her hand to her chest before deeply bowing and shouting in a voice that bordered on worship. This Junior Xia Qingyu and her husband Yun Qi begs to see Senior Shen Xi. The only thing that replied to Xia Qingyu was still that heavy silence. It was as if it was truly a fantastical and empty world, and that there was no one who had even heard her desperate entreaties. Xia Qingyu lightly held Yun Qi close before shouting yet again. For disturbing Senior Shen Xi's peace and quiet, this junior deserves 10,000 deaths. But my husband has been afflicted by the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, and the only one under heaven who can save him is Senior Shen Xi. I beg Senior Shen Xi to show us great compassion and to appear before us to save him. Junior Xia Qingyu is willing to use her own life as a guarantee. Every word that proceeded from her mouth was filled with a deep, mournful supplication. Her voice was so deeply mournful that even this still and quiet world had been colored by that sorrow. Beside her, a group of colorful butterflies, which had been flitting among the flowers, had started to flap their colorful wings as they rose in the air, and quietly watched the girl who knelt in that place. She deeply bowed and did not get up for a very long time. It was at that moment that the colorful butterflies, who had hovered there for a long period of time, suddenly flew up in the air before joyfully and excitedly dancing among the flowers. It was also at this moment that a voice rang out in this pure and quiet world. "This is not a place that you should have come to, you should leave." That voice was very supple and beautiful, and it sounded as if it had come from the peaks of the clouds. It also sounded as if it had come from a dream. It was as light and wispy as a cloud, as soft and supple as a breeze. No matter who heard it, they would find themselves unable to believe that such a softly supple, beautiful, and pure voice actually existed in this world. Perhaps even the legendary, ethereal, celestial music would barely compare to it. To Xia Qingyu, this response was undoubtedly celestial music from the heavens themselves. She jerked her head up before deeply bowing yet again. "Senior Shen Xi, this junior knows that disturbing your meditation is an unforgivable sin. But my husband has been afflicted with the Brahma monarch god realms, Brahma soul death-wishing mark. So this junior has been left with no other choice than to come here and beg this senior to show us her magnanimity. Since you know who I am, then you should also know that I am someone who exists beyond this mortal realm, and that I never meddle in the affairs of man. On account of the utter devotion and wholehearted sincerity that you showed in desiring to save your husband's life, I forgive you for the crime of disturbing my rest. You should leave and never disturb this place again." Her voice was incomparably pure and gentle. It sounded like it could soothe even the most terrible of rages, and cause a person whose heart had been dyed in evil to weep tears of regret. But to Xia Qingyu, that voice sounded incomparably cruel and merciless, because it was not willing to grant her even the tiniest sliver of hope. "Senior Shen Xi, how could Xia Qingyu be willing to leave just like that? Instead, she spoke in a soft voice. I beg that you bestow knowledge upon this junior. Do you have any method to lift the Brahma soul death-wishing mark that is afflicting his body?" A long and heavy silence lingered in that misty world before that celestial voice, which seemed to come from a dream, rang out once more in slow, dulcet tones. "The Brahma soul death-wishing mark afflicting his body, besides the one who has cursed him. I am indeed the only person in this world that can release him from it. But I say these words only because I do not wish to lie to anyone, and they are not meant to give you any hope. This is a place that mortal souls are absolutely not allowed to enter, so it would be better if you left." Xia Qingyu felt as if her heart had been struck by a comet as it shone with the intense light of hope. Previously, she had brought Yun Qi to this place because she was grasping at that last sliver of hope. This hope originated from the time when the moon god emperor had told her about Shen Xi, and had previously mentioned that she had an extremely unique power which was able to purge and cleanse all forms of curses and contamination. But in the end, that had only been a mere hope. However, the celestial voice that rang in her ears had actually admitted to Xia Qingyu that she could indeed get rid of the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. It was just that this bright and resplendent light was separated from her by an enormous gulf of indifference. She once again begged that voice. "He is no mortal spirit. Senior, you have dwelled in this celestial abode all this while. So perhaps you are unaware that he induced a 9-stage lightning tribulation to descend upon this world just half a month ago. And the heavenly mystery realm even prophesied that he was the child of the heavens. Furthermore, the dragon monarch also greatly admires him, and he even took the initiative to try to take him as a foster son." As she spoke, Xianxia raised the dragon god mark high above her head. This is the dragon god mark that was personally bestowed by the dragon monarch. So every word that this junior is saying is 100% true. If the dragon monarch were here himself, he would definitely also hope that senior would be able to save him. Just as her words finished falling, the celestial voice replied, "I have never stained myself with the dust of the mortal world, and this is not because I am fickle-minded or lack any desires. It is because there are certain unique circumstances and difficulties which prevent me from doing so. Before I am able to resolve these issues, I will definitely not make an exception for anybody." The Brahma soul death-wishing mark on his body is far from ordinary, so it could only have come from either the Brahma heaven god emperor or the Brahma monarch goddess. Given my power, expelling this curse from his body will not only harm my vitality, it will also require at least 50 years to accomplish. Not only that, it will also embroil me in the grievances between you and the Brahma monarch god realm. As such, I have no reason to get involved in your affairs, so please take him and leave. Even if the dragon monarch were here with you, my answer would still be to ask you to leave. Xianxia had originally believed that even if her words did not cause her to have a change of heart, it would still definitely move the other party. But who would have thought that the voice that rang in her ears was not the least bit moved? It remained as placid and resolute as before. Xianxia found it hard to breathe as she closed her eyes and said, "Senior Shen Xi, this junior is definitely not asking you to save him for free. Even though junior is merely a mortal woman, I possess the 9 profound, exquisite body. If senior is willing to save him, this junior is willing to pass this 9 profound, exquisite body to senior. I beg that senior take mercy on us and save him." When she was facing someone on the level of Shen Xi, the 9 profound, exquisite body was the only bargaining chip she could bring to the table. A long and drawn-out sigh of lamentation rang in the air. She could sense the despair in Xianxia's words and voice, and she knew that these feelings of despair had no doubt been engendered by her uncompromising response. The 9 profound, exquisite body is a divine body that was gifted to you by the heavens themselves. Do not treat it as such. Linger, see them off for me." Very light footsteps rang in the air as a green-clothed girl slowly emerged from the mist-shrouded world in front of Xianxia. The young girl's figure was willowy and delicate, and she was dressed in light green robes. Even her hair was a bright shade of emerald green, and it seemed as if her entire body was drenched in faint green shadows. She did not look older than 20, and her features were exceedingly beautiful, containing an innate delicate and charming frailty. The skin beneath her green-colored clothes was like the petals of a freshly bloomed flower. It was whiter than snow and more lustrous than jade. It was inconceivably tender and soft, and as people marveled at it, they were loath to even touch it. As she approached, the fresh and delightful fragrance of flowers also slowly wafted over. The girl stopped a step before the barrier before speaking to Xianxia. "Big sister, this place is a place that no one is allowed to enter, so the both of you should go." Her eyes were very pretty and they twinkled with a viridian light, and from beneath her emerald green hair, 2 long, lustrous, and snowy ears peeked out. They were clearly different from the ears of a human being. A wood spirit, the name of this particular race flashed in Xianxia's mind. The handmaiden that the guardian dragon god said that Shen Xi had brought back not too long was actually a young girl of the wood spirit race. The forbidden land of Samsara was a completely unstained land, and only the energy of nature rested within it. Hence, only the wood spirits, who were the purest beings in this world, had the qualifications to enter and accompany Shen Xi. The only hope lay in front of her, so how could Xianxia leave just like this? She was already kneeling, but she refused to rise as she once again made a deep bow and said, "Senior Shen Xi, I beg for you to show mercy to us. If you don't save him, then he's definitely going to die. As long as you're willing to save him, no matter what you want and no matter what you want me to do, I am willing to do it." She had never begged anyone in such a manner before. Even when she had reached the god realm, she directly entered the moon god realm, and the Moon God Emperor had viewed her as his own daughter. After that, she had also carried the title of God Empress, so she had never needed to be subordinate to anyone. But today, she had knelt on the ground for a long time, setting aside all of her cold pride and dignity. Yet the only thing she had received in return was the warm and gentle heartlessness. "Big sister," the wood spirit girl said, "Master has her own difficulties and she won't make an exception for anyone. Even if you knelt her for 10 or even 100 years, Master would still not give her a cent. Furthermore, it might just make the dragon monarch angry, so you had better leave as soon as you can and find some other method." Some other method. This was the Brahma soul death-wishing mark we were talking about. What other method could there be? "Senior Shen Xi?" Xia Qingyu was just about to start begging again. But all of a sudden, golden marks flashed across the body of the Yuan Qi she had been hugging tightly all this while. He violently shuddered before both of his eyes instantly shot open, and he let out a wail that was filled with devastating pain. You were, og-a-h-h-h-h-h-h-h. After his short lapse into unconsciousness, he had once again woken up to this nightmarish abyss as he let out cries that sounded like the howls of an evil spirit. Within this world that was so pure that it was practically a dream, his howls were exceptionally shrill and ear-piercing as they startled countless flying birds and insects, causing them to take to the air in fright. "Yuan Qi!" Xia Qingyu hurriedly hugged him tight once more, and she was especially careful to tightly grasp Yuan Qi's hands, so as to prevent him from hurting himself again. She raised her head and shouted in a grim voice, "Senior Shen Xi, I beg that you save his life no matter what. Xia Qingyu will forever remember your generosity and mercy and will use her entire life to pay it back. Even if I am unable to pay you back in this life, I will definitely repay this debt of kindness even in my next." Arg. It was clear that she had never heard such wails of agony in her entire life before, so the wood spirit girl's tender and fair face, which had originally had the color of a freshly peeled lychee, had now turned ashen. Her gaze timidly zipped around. She did not dare to look at the struggling and howling Yuan Qi. This, coupled with Xia Qingyu's pleas, which were practically laced with tears and blood at this point, caused her to be unable to bear it as she also started to plead with her master. "Master, he looks to be in such great pain. Is it truly not possible for you to save him?" The celestial voice rang out as if it came from a distant place. "There are countless tragedies and sorrows in this world, and no one person can save them all. That is their fate, and as someone who exists outside the world of mortal man, I naturally should not interfere. The curse afflicting his body is also not an ordinary one. So if I were to save him, not only would it allow him to stain this place, it would also embroil us in the petty grievances and hatreds of the mortal world. Even worse than that, it would cause the complete and utter ruin of at least 20,000 years' worth of my heart's blood." Those words caused the wood spirit girl's beautiful eyes to widen spectacularly. It was clear that she had not realized that the consequences would be quite so serious. She could only force herself to put away her pity and speak to Xia Qingyu in an apologetic tone. "I'm sorry, big sister. He's really very pitiful, but Master really can't save him, so I'd advise you to take him away from this place as soon as you can." "I beg, Senior, please save him." Xia Qingyu's figure did not move. She closed her eyes, her voice distressed and powerless. Within the vast god realm, the only person by her side was Yuan Qi, now that she had left the protection of the moon god realm and no one else could help her. The only bargaining chip she could bring to the table was her exquisite world or her own life. Other than those, she did not know what other methods she had left to her. But if they left this place, it would mean that there was truly no hope. So the only thing left for her to do would be to kill Yuan Qi herself. This kind of painful powerlessness, it was exactly the same as when frozen cloud Asgard had been pushed into a corner all those years ago. Upon seeing Xia Qingyu's appearance, and especially the look in her eyes, the wood spirit girl bit her lip. Following that, it seemed like she recalled something, because her eyes suddenly went red as tears fell to the ground. She hurriedly wiped those tears away, and she turned around and prepared to leave. But just as she had taken 2 steps, she came to a stop yet again and turned around after that to speak to Xia Qingyu once more. "Big sister, you should take him and go. Master really can't save him. I have several spiritual medicines that Master made herself with me. They can't save him, but they might just be able to ease his pain." As she spoke, the wood spirit girl held up several emerald green medicinal pellets. She took a few steps forward before stepping directly out of the barrier as she prepared to hand them over to Xia Qingyu. But the moment this wood spirit girl had stepped out of the barrier, Xianxia and her chests started to shine with a strange viridian light. In that instant, the wood spirit girl reacted as if she had been struck by lightning. She completely froze in place as the emerald green pills she held rolled off her hand and fell to the ground. "Lin, she mumbled to herself in a dazed voice. But suddenly she rushed towards Xianxia as both her hands tightly grabbed his body, tears streaking across her face in the next instant. Linner, it's Linner. Why does your body contain Linner's aura? Who are you? Why does your body contain Linner's aura?" Xianxia raised her head and stared dumbfoundedly at the wood spirit girl. She had originally been delicate and timid, yet she had suddenly morphed into a crazy person. She just muttered a few incoherent words over and over again as her tears gushed forth like a bubbling spring. After she had drawn nearer, the viridian light shining from Xianxia's chest started to get even denser. It was as if it sensed something. Under that viridian light, Xianxia regained a few motes of clarity. Through blurry eyes, he gazed upon the wood spirit girl whose beautiful face was marked by a torrent of tears, and a strange feeling started to spread throughout his entire body. He opened his mouth with much difficulty, and his voice trembled as he spoke. "You are he, Ling?" The hands which had grabbed Xianxia tightened as he Ling nodded vigorously, her uncontrollable weeping having drenched her entire face in tears. "It's me. I am he Ling. Linner he, what happened to him? What happened to him? Tell me, please, please tell me." Xianxia's dry lips parted. Even if his soul had been plunged into a deep abyss, it still quivered with agitation and emotion. He Ling, she was he Ling. When He Lin was alive, she had always been on his mind, and before he turned to dust, he had begged him to find his big sister, who was also the last descendant of the wood spirit royal family. He had finally found her, yet it had come at such a time. "He Lin wanted me to find you. Finally, arg." Just those few short words had completely exhausted the little clarity that Xianxia had fought so hard to regain. Following that, he once again fell into that nightmarish abyss, and besides his hoarse cries of pain and his furious struggling, he did not say another complete word. Linner. He Ling's heart and soul were thrown into complete chaos, and her mind was filled with images of He Lin. To her, it seemed as if He Lin was the one who was painfully struggling and thrashing about in front of her. It caused pain to instantly pierce through her heart. Her body whirled around furiously as she cried out in a teary voice, "Master, I beg you, please save him. He's Linner. He is my younger brother Linner. Please save him, please." Xianxia stared dumbfoundedly at the weeping wood spirit girl. She was begging for Xianxia's life with nearly the exact same vigor that she did previously. "Linger," Shen Xi's voice was overlaid by a small sigh of sadness. "He isn't your little brother. His body merely contains your brother's wood spirit orb." "Linger knows," the wood spirit girl said with tears dripping down her face. "But he is Linner's benefactor. He is the person that Linner has entrusted everything to, and he represents the continuation of Linner's life." With a thud, she fell heavily to her knees. "Master, I beg that you save him. I beg that Master saves him." If a wood spirit had lost their wood spirit orb, it had undoubtedly meant that they had died. Thus, robbing a wood spirit of their wood spirit orb was the most heinous of crimes, and it would also make that person the wood spirit race's mortal enemy. However, the royal wood spirit orb was different. The royal wood spirit orb within Xianxia's body still retained all of its aura. It was a perfect and complete royal wood spirit orb. Moreover, for a perfect royal wood spirit orb to appear within a human's body, the only possibility was that this royal wood spirit had entrusted it to that person wholeheartedly. As the purest living beings in the world, wood spirits had an innate ability to sense good and evil. As a royal wood spirit, to be willing to sacrifice his own life and pass his own wood spirit orb to a human, it would mean that he either owed him a huge debt of gratitude that could never be repaid, or it meant that this human was someone whom he was willing to leave everything to. As the descendant of the royal wood spirit family, He Ling understood this point better than anyone else in the universe. The only thing that answered He Ling was a long silence. She could sense the pain and grief inside He Ling's heart. Her greatest desire, and what one could even describe as the greatest motivation for her to continue living on, was to find her younger brother He Lin. It was just as He Lin himself had most desired to find her as well, because that was her closest family, and also the last hope of the wood spirit royal family. But today, He Lin's wood spirit orb had appeared in the body of a human, which meant that He Lin was dead. And its greater implication was that the royal wood spirit line was extinct from now on. The impact this had on her was undoubtedly equivalent to the heavens and the earth collapsing. Thus, the Xianxia who carried He Lin's wood spirit orb within his body was also the one thing which kept her from complete despair. He was like that final straw, or perhaps he could be considered the final consolation. It was just that. "Master," He Ling kowtowed heavily as her teary voice grew hoarse. "Linger is dead, Linger. No longer has any family left. Linger's parents died to protect her. And Linger also lost Linger. Not only was I unable to protect him for that short period of time, I didn't even get to see him one last time before he is the person that Linger has entrusted everything to. He is the last hope of any part of Linger still remaining in this world. So no matter what, I want to protect him. I beg Master to save him. Linger won't go anywhere else after this, for my entire life and even in all of my next ones. I will accompany Master wherever she goes, so please, Master, please save him." Grief, tears, self-recrimination, guilt, despair. This pure and beautiful wood spirit, who was so frail and delicate, who seemed so innocent and unstained, her spirit and her will had now completely collapsed after she had sensed the wood spirit orb in Xianxia's body. She had personally witnessed her parents and countless other kinsmen kill themselves by destroying their own wood spirit orbs so that they could create the opportunity for them to flee. She had been separated from He Lin as they were escaping. During those years, she had not cared whether she was noticed or targeted by others as she had searched for him like a madwoman. In a world that was incomparably terrifying and cruel for a wood spirit, finding He Ling was the greatest reason for her to keep on living. And nearly every day, she would live with the overwhelming guilt of having lost He Lin 3 years ago. She had gone to a star realm that was rumored to have wood spirit sightings to find He Lin, and she had been surrounded and trapped by people there. But fortunately for her, Shen Xi saved her life and brought her to this place. She served Shen Xi at her side, and her only request was to beg Shen Xi to help her find He Lin. But today, she found out that she would no longer be able to see He Lin ever again, and the only thing left in this world was his wood spirit orb. All of the hopes, desires, and guilt that she had borne over the years in her misery that had her teetering over the edge of despair, all of these emotions had become firmly attached to Xianxia. AI. From the wispy fog of the forbidden land of samsara came a long, empathic sigh of resignation. It looks like this is also the will of the heavens. All those years ago, when I brought you back, I had already promised that I'd help you find your royal brother. Since I have promised you this, I will naturally not go back on my word. Linger, please get up, I will save him. He Ling's weeping subsided slightly before she made a deep bow. Thank you, Master." Those 3 words were said while her soul was shuddering. Even though she had only accompanied Shen Xi for 3 short years, she was deeply aware of what those words meant to her. This kind of heavenly favor was a debt of gratitude that would be hard for her to repay even if she had all eternity to do so. She viewed Xianxia through teary eyes. His painful cries and tortured appearance caused her to feel so much pain that it was hard to even breathe. She grabbed his spasming hands and consoled him in a teary voice. "Did you hear that? Master said that she was willing to save you. You'll be fine in no time at all. You'll get better very soon." It was as if a huge boulder had been lifted off her shoulders, but just as Xia Qingyu's heart was about to rejoice, she suddenly felt a deep exhaustion assault her. She glanced at He Ling and made a small bow to the empty space in front of her. "The great favor that Senior Shen Xi has shown today, Xia Qingyu will never ever forget it." "You don't need to thank me," the celestial voice spoke slowly as if it was in a dream. "I rescued him for Linger's sake. Since he also has a royal wood spirit orb, it will not stain this place either." Xia Qingyu faintly shook her head. "Senior is willing to save him, and that is the favor of heaven in and of itself. Once the Brahma soul death-wishing mark afflicting him has been lifted, whatever Senior desires me to do, Xia Qingyu will definitely obey." A divine sense lightly swept over Xia Qingyu's body, and it seemed that the celestial figure within the mist was only now truly taking a measure of her. "What an obstinate and stubborn girl. Have you always been this way, Xia Qingyu? Even though I can save him, the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on his body is extremely tyrannical. If one desires to completely expel it, it will take at least 50 years. During those 50 years, he needs to remain in this place, and he cannot take a single step out of it. Furthermore, I will need to seal his memories, so for the 50 years that he is here, he will not remember anything of his past, and once he leaves 50 years later, he will also not remember anything that has happened in this place." "That is fine. I thank Senior for fulfilling my wish." Xia Qingyu did not find the words that rang in her ears the least bit surprising. This junior will entrust this matter to someone to pick him up from this place once 50 years have gone by. Oh, the celestial voice expressed a bit of surprise. Why won't you be the one to receive him? Xia Qingyu did not respond. Instead, she deftly changed the subject by asking, Can I ask Senior Shen Xi during these 50 years, before the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on his body is completely expunged, is there any way to lessen his pain? Don't worry. The voice very quickly became incomparably gentle as she replied her. Even though I am unable to get rid of the Brahma soul death-wishing mark in a short amount of time, I can make it so that his curse gradually does not flare up. And even if it does flare up, it will not be to the point where it is unbearable. As the celestial voice rang in her ears, a white light that was so pure that it was inconceivable floated down from the mists and shrouded Yun Qi's body. As the white light neared her body, Xia Qingyu's beautiful eyes immediately focused. She felt as if her body, blood, profound veins, and soul had all been gently cleaned by exceedingly pure spring water. The pain from the wounds that Yun Qi had gouged on her body lessened, and the pain and panic in her heart were also softly being eased. Even her 5 senses had become exceptionally clear. So this was the power that foster father spoke of. The white light softly engulfed Yun Qi's body, and his contortions and spasms immediately grew much less tortured. The distortion of his muscles and blood vessels, and his hoarse screaming, lessened as time went by. It was as if his entire body had been fished out of a blood pond from hell and bathed in a warm spring, as every cell and every pore of his body was being soothed. A few motes of clarity appeared in those disordered eyes at this time, and he slowly raised a trembling hand. He had, astonishingly enough, recovered some control over his body. He also managed to gasp out 2 words rather clearly, King, you. Alleviating his pain was in the end a help, but it was not a cure. Yun Qi still felt unbearable pain run through his entire body, but it had been lowered to the point where his will was able to forcibly withstand it. Now that the greatest worry in her heart had dissipated, Xia Qingyu once again made a deep bow towards the empty space in front of her. After that, she spoke to Yun Qi softly. It's simply too great. Senior Shen Xi has already promised to save you, so you don't need to suffer from so much pain anymore. It's already no longer a problem. Even though 50 years are very long, remaining in this place at Senior Shen Xi's side means that no one will be able to hurt you again. If you are able to gain Senior Shen Xi's admiration or fondness, it will also be an extremely big opportunity for you. Then during these 50 years, you can stay here without any reservations and forget about everything in the outside world. With the Brahma soul death-wishing mark afflicting him, Yun Qi would no longer be able to enter the eternal heaven pearl. This meant that he had lost the extremely large opportunity to cultivate for 3,000 years in the eternal heaven divine realm. But given that he had been targeted by Qianai Yinger, there was already no safe space for Yun Qi to rest his head in this world. Staying in this place would undoubtedly guarantee 50 years of absolute safety for Yun Qi, because even Qianai Yinger would not dare to force her way into this forbidden ground. Since I have promised that he could stay, then there is nothing for you to worry about. Shen Xi's voice rang out slowly yet again. You possess the heart of glazed glass, and you are a woman who has received the protection of heaven. Since I am allowing him to stay, why don't you stay as well and accompany him during these 50 years? To Shen Xi, this was also another exception that she was making, because Xia Qingyu possessed the heart of glazed glass that was rare for her to see even over the hundreds of thousands of years that she had lived. After lowering Yun Qi gently to the ground, Xia Qingyu slowly stood up and said, I thank Senior Shen Xi for your good intentions. Since he is staying with Senior in this place, Qingyu really does not need to worry about him at all anymore. Qingyu has already disturbed Senior for quite a while, so it is time for me to leave and go to the place that I must return to. Oh, Shen Xi expressed quite some astonishment at this reply. She took one last long and deep look at Yun Qi before closing her eyes and turning around, and she steeled herself with determined resoluteness as she prepared to leave. But at this moment, the edge of her skirt was firmly grabbed by a trembling hand. Yun Qi's entire body shuddered and his face started to contort once again, but the hand that was grabbing the hem of Xia Qingyu's skirt was holding on very tightly. Qingyu, where are you going? As his pain had lessened by a great degree, he had also regained a bit of clarity and conscious thought. Where else would Xia Qingyu go but the moon god realm? But after what had happened at the wedding celebration in the Moon God realm, she had already become a sinner in the eyes of the entire Moon God realm. Even if the Moon God Emperor was truly as she had said, and treated her like his very own daughter, and would forgive her even if she had made a worse mistake. Besides him, there would still be the wrath of the entire Moon God realm waiting for her. Furthermore, no one would be able to bring themselves to believe that the wrath of the Moon God Emperor had actually completely subsided. So the Moon God realm would likely imprison her, exile her, cripple her profound strength, or maybe even execute her. Xia Qingyu's footsteps halted, but she did not turn back. "Don't worry, I'll be fine. This is something that I need to face." "And no," Yunqi gritted his teeth. "I've said it before, I have to stay with you." Xia Qingyu's chest violently rose and fell. It was only after quite a while that she coldly replied, "One of them is my foster father, who I owe a great debt of gratitude to, and the other is my birth mother, who is near the end of her life. No matter how they treat me, it is just since I have turned my back on them. Even if they need my life as atonement, I would be perfectly willing to do so, but how is this any of your business? We are husband and wife, but in these 12 years we were only married in name. Never were we a couple in the truest sense, and rarely have we met because we were more often apart than not. Although we were married, our relationship has always tethered on thin ice." Yunqi held his breath, not understanding why Xia Qingyu was saying all this. She finally turned around to face Yunqi once more, but both her face and eyes were icy cold. She emotionlessly crouched down, their marriage contract astonishingly in her hands. "In order to preserve your dignity, I abandoned my foster father and my biological mother. In order to save you, I traveled all the way here. Everything I've done so far has lived up to our married status, and I no longer owe you anything. From now on, you'll belong to your Western region's Dragon God realm, and I'll stick to my Eastern region's Moon God realm. We will go on our separate ways, without any debts or grievances between us. From this day forth, us husband and wife will have cut off all ties." Rip. A light sound later, the marriage contract in Xia Qingyu's hands instantly ripped into several white pieces and then scattered into dust, until they became nothingness without any vestiges remaining. Shen Xi, "Ah!" He Ling's beautiful eyes widened as she blankly stared at the scene before her. She just could not understand it. For him, that girl had begged on her knees, not hesitating to use her life as a guarantee just a moment ago. Why did she suddenly become this merciless? "Qing, Yue!" All the blood in Yunqi's body madly gushed to his head, and he could not breathe. "You!" She stood up, turned around, and coldly continued without bothering to look at him again. "You should now understand how frightening Kaianai Yinger is. If you don't want to die, don't bother leaving the Dragon God realm before your wings have yet to fully develop. 50 years from now, whether I, Xia Qingyu, am dead or alive, have met fortune or misfortune, that will have nothing to do with you." Yunqi's mouth incessantly gaped. He wanted to say something, but once his blood rushed to his head, his brain went into turmoil and he could not voice a single word. The lengthy torture had already weakened his consciousness to its extremity, but now that all his vital energy and blood surged to his head, the reverse flow of blood attacked his mind. The world before him suddenly went black as he fainted dead away. However, the hand gripping onto her skirt was still clutching the edges ever so tightly, as if it took all his strength and willpower to do so. Xia Qingyu lifted her head and took a deep breath before she stooped down to slowly loosen Yunqi's hold on her skirt. She slowly advanced in silence, her expression calming with each step forward. After taking more than 10 steps, her face was already a sheet of frost, without any visible gentleness and yearning. "Senior Shen Xi, Qingyu bids you farewell." After saying that, right when she intended to take flight, her body suddenly trembled fiercely. An arrow of blood spurted out from between her lips, staining the clean land before her with a glaring streak of scarlet. This bloody arrow seemed to have robbed her of all strength. She slowly sunk to the ground, shoulders repeatedly shuddering as teardrops silently fell between her dangling hair. No matter how much she tried, she was unable to cease her actions. "Ai," a long sigh came over from between the heavens and earth. "Why must you do that to yourself?" The shuddering of Xia Qingyu's shoulders was incomparably intense, yet she firmly resisted against making the slightest sound. It was only after a while that she finally stood up again and softly answered, "I am no longer qualified to live for myself." "Aside from you yourself, no one else can force you to such a state," Shen Xi said gently. Xia Qingyu faintly shook her head. With a wave of her jade hands, the vanishing moon's celestial palace appeared overhead, but she did not immediately enter and instead suddenly turned about. A ball of profound light flickered on her body. Then, guided by her will, it flew toward the unconscious Xianxia. That profound light quickly latched onto Xianxia before disappearing into his body. At this time, the vanishing moon celestial palace flashed with a bright white light. And thus, the vanishing moon celestial palace had a change in ownership. Senior Shen Xi, if King Yu is still alive 50 years later, she will definitely repay today's gratitude. If King Yu is no longer in this world by then, she will repay it in the next life. Shen Xi, she rose into the air, flying far into the east. Soon, her silhouette and aura disappeared in the ends of the east, leaving behind a heavy feeling of empty solitude, and that lengthy streak of blood which still glared scarlet. A pair of eyes looked in the direction she left towards and only withdrew after a very long time. A soft voice sighed, being possessed of such passion and character, yet so unyielding and stubborn. This kind, wondrous girl is truly rare to behold. I hope the heavens may protect her. Ling sat in a kneeling posture next to Xianxia since the start, her jade-green-colored eyes never leaving his body. This was the first time she met this man, and she never interacted with him. In the past either, yet he had become her greatest last hope. "Master, is he all right?" Ling asked worriedly, drops of translucent tears still hanging on her face. Lin's attack was already too huge. If not for the hope named Xianxia, she would have perhaps already collapsed. "Bring him in." "Yes." Ling hurriedly wiped away the tears on her face and carefully carried Xianxia into the barrier. Upon entering the barrier, the hazy mist outside the barrier instantly dissipated. What appeared in its place was an absolutely beautiful world filled with a myriad of colors. Here, the green grass swayed as hundreds of flowers contended with one another in beauty. It was an explosion of color with countless exotic flowers blossoming enchantingly. These flowers joined with the green grass around them, becoming a vast ocean of flora. Beyond the flowers and grass, the air, the earth, the trees, the flowing water, and the sky, everything was pure, as if they had come from an imaginary dreamland. Anyone who came here for the very first time would deeply believe that they had stepped into a fairy tale world. There was no dust or filth, no crime, and no disputes. As Ling's footsteps advanced, the flowers and grass beside her all lightly swayed in her direction. A few jade bees and colorful butterflies also cheerfully flew over, dancing around with her at their center. After passing through the world of flowers and grass, an extremely simplistic bamboo house stood before them. Crawling above the bamboo house were multiple emerald green vines that covered most of its surface. A similarly colored emerald green bamboo door also existed, but aside from that, there was no other decoration on this bamboo house, nor was there any other object of complexity in this world. There was no luxurious palace, no lustrous profound light, only a small bamboo house which seemed to have fused with this world. In front of the bamboo house was the figure of a woman immersed in mist. No, if one came closer, they would discover that what covered her was not mist, but clearly a cluster of white light. The white light was visibly dense, yet looked exceptionally natural and gentle as it quietly concealed that silhouette. Although her face was obstructed from view, one could catch a faint outline of her incomparably beautiful figure. She did not seem to have been deliberately releasing that white light. It wrapped around her body like it was a part of her. Once Ling approached, the woman within the white light slowly turned around. At the same time, a pure and holy aura came over. Yes, it was pure and holy, so holy that it could possibly be considered divine. It made one clearly sense the filth in their body and soul, made one feel like kneeling on the ground, made one feel that if they came just one step closer and took just one more glance at her, it would be an unforgivable blasphemy. This aura was different from those temperaments cultivated in pure and holy environments. Her divinity seemed to have come from the depths of her soul, and could also strike the depths of other souls. Ling gently lowered Xianxia to the ground, then she kneeled deeply. "Master, it's Linger who made such a selfish request, Linger. No need to say any more." She gently shook her head, her voice exceptionally soft. "This is the promise I made to you back then. I am merely honoring it now." Heart-pounding, Ling bit her lips and did not say another word. She was already unable to return the favor of when Shen Xi saved her life back then, and in her heart, Ling clearly understood what it meant for Xianxia to stay at present. This kind of favor certainly could not be repaid in 10 lifetimes. Even though fate was incredibly cruel to her, she was incomparably grateful that the heavens allowed her to come across this kind of master. Xianxia was still in an unconscious state, but his body was tense, and his face was still flooded with pain. As Shen Xi slightly leaned over, she gently pressed the pure white light downwards with her palm. A much thicker layer of white light immediately enveloped Yun Qi's body, not fading for a long time. Under this layer of white light, Yun Qi's body and the expression on his face relaxed bit by bit. Even his breathing gradually became steadier, no longer rough. The Brahma soul death-wishing mark he has been afflicted with is currently the world's most malicious curse that simultaneously affects the soul, blood, tendons, and body. The one who planted this death-wishing mark on him is the Eastern Divine Region's leader of the four king realms, the Brahma monarch god realm's Xianxia Yinger. Although she did not touch his body with the other party's identity, she clearly understood the soul aura of the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. Brahma monarch goddess, Healing softly muttered. Although she rarely made contact with the outside world, the title of Brahma monarch goddess was one of great reputation. The Brahma monarch goddess schemes deeply. She rarely shows herself in front of others, and although she shows her hand even less, in order to plant the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on him, she actually did not hesitate to harm her own soul origin as the cost. It looks like this child has something she desperately seeks. Shen Xi stated gently, each and every one of her words as soft as floating clouds. Is it for the wood spirit orb on him? Linner's wood spirit orb? Once she thought about it, Healing's mind became chaotic once more. A royal wood spirit orb was an item of great rarity, one that would cause even king realms to get worked up to a frenzy. No, Shen Xi lightly shook her head. Although a royal wood spirit orb is a relic that many would covet, it would not make Brahma monarch goddess go this far. In the following half-month, I will use all my power to suppress his death-wishing mark. This will make every consequential outbreak after the half-month period less painful, and fret not, I will keep him asleep the entire time. Healing heavily kowtowed. Master Linger will leave him to you. Go, Shen Xi said with a smile. Yes, Healing obediently rose. After taking another glance at Yun Qi, she left with light steps lest she disturb her. Only after walking quite a distance away did she slowly crouch down, hugging her own shoulders, her entire silhouette nearly blending in with the flora around her. In the end, she could not control herself any longer. With a shudder of her shoulders and her hands desperately clasped over her lips, tears quickly streamed down her face. The wood spirit clan that ought to have received the protection of nature actually underwent this much suffering. If Lord Li Xiu were still alive, she would grieve. Shen Xi sighed faintly. She lifted her right hand. With a gentle press of her jade fingers, a mote of white light immediately floated down toward the center of Yun Qi's brows, about to temporarily seal his memories. She told Xia Qingyu before that Yun Qi's memories of his time in the land of samsara would be sealed. He would no longer remember his past, and he would also have no memories about this place once he left. To Shen Xi, this was something she was adamant about. The white beam fluttered, sinking between Yun Qi's brows. But in the next instant, that mote of white light suddenly scattered, accompanied by a soul-suppressing dragon cry. Ayo-o-o-o in this world, which only possessed the cries of insects, the dragon roar was especially frightening. It scared the weeping wood spirit girl and shook the celestial figure covered in white even more. Master, the wood spirit girl quickly wiped away her tears and anxiously ran back. What happened? That sound from before. Before she had yet to finish her sentence, her beautiful eyes suddenly froze, because she clearly saw the acute trembling of Shen Xi's light-covered celestial figure. She had not even retrieved the pointing finger, leaving it hanging in the air. It was as if her soul had suddenly left her. Shen Xi pressed down with her finger once more, not answering Healing's question. Another mote of light slowly floated down, touching the center of Yun Qi's brows. Ayo-o-o-o. The white light scattered as yet another dragon roar reverberated through the incomparably pure space of the forbidden ground, shocking innumerable animals living there. Ah! Healing was shocked back a step. She looked at Shen Xi, who was clearly out of sorts, and worriedly asked, Master, are you all right? Shen Xi slowly withdrew her hand. The white light surrounding her was like candlelight blown by a gentle breeze as a slightly chaotic fluctuation appeared. Healing stared at her in a daze and didn't know what to do. Healing knew the identity of the woman before her. She was the world's most respected, most divine existence. She never asked about the affairs of the world, never entered the mortal realm, and would never be stirred by anything. She was like the leisurely clouds in the skies above, unstained by any extreme emotion and desire. Healing had never seen, nor had she ever believed that such a reaction would appear on her body. She gently spoke after a long stretch of strange silence. "I cannot seal his memories." "Ah." Hand on her chest, Ling did not know how to respond. Then under her shocked gaze, Shen Xi slowly crouched down in front of Qi. This was the first time she had ever seen Shen Xi lower her body before anyone, even if it was an unconscious person. Shen Xi stretched out a hand. She pressed a finger at his chest and stroked lightly as a cluster of holy white light also followed her fingertips. Sensing her power, Qi's chest flooded with a dark green radiance and released a pure aura exclusive to the wood spirit orb. But before Shen Xi's hand had stopped, a bizarre attraction came from Qi's left hand. When the white light brushed over, a vermilion flash came from Qi's left arm, revealing a sword-shaped vermilion profound mark. A delicate little figure suddenly appeared within the brilliant light of the sword-shaped profound mark. She possessed vermilion-colored hair, a red as lustrous as crystal. Her face resembled sculpted jade and was filled with the immature innocence of a young girl. Her eyes were also vermilion. They sparkled like stars, radiant and moving. It was actually hunger. To Qi and even the laws of this universe, hunger was an extremely special existence. She had clearly been under Jasmine's soul star relegation and had been subjected to the harshest master-servant contract by Qi. Yet her own will was still immensely independent. She was never completely obedient to Qi and frequently caused a commotion, cheating him or forcing him to compromise to her needs. She had also often left Qi's control and randomly appeared at will. Although that was true, she still had some propriety and never exposed herself to outsiders. But this time, when Qi happened to be unconscious, she suddenly and voluntarily appeared in front of Shen Xi. "Ah," Ling gently cried out. "A little girl? Phew, ah." When hunger came out, she gave a big stretch. It was obvious that she had been sleeping just a moment ago. Glinting with vermilion light, her eyes scanned her surroundings before locking onto Shen Xi, earnestly staring at her, her milk-white face slowly filling with doubt. Shen Xi stilled when she saw hunger, and the two stood like that for a long time until she broke the silence. "Wan, who is it really you? You're still alive." Ling lightly covered her lips with her hand. She heard the tremors in Shen Xi's voice and even heard a hint of tears. Upon hearing her words, hunger tilted her head, puzzled. "Wan food, big sister, are you about to eat something? I just happen to be a little hungry now, too." "Oh, right, big sister, who are you? I couldn't help but come out when I sensed your aura. Why is that?" And she looked at the white light around Shen Xi, confused, and subconsciously bit her finger until she finally found the words she was looking for. "And I feel really nostalgic, weird." After saying that, she then muttered to herself, "If Master finds out, he'll definitely get angry again." Seeing Hunger's completely innocent eyes, Shen Xi said gently, "Wanhu, do you really not remember me? I'm Shen Xi." "Shen, breathe." Hunger blinked, then giggled in mirth. "Big sister, your name's really weird. I don't know why, but I feel like I really, really like you, as much as I like Master too. Oh right, do you want to be Master's wife? If you become his wife, I'll get to play with you often." Shen Xi's gaze fell on Qi. "You call him Master?" "Yeah." Hunger nodded with a smile. "Master's super good to me and gives me so many yummy things to eat. He even tells me really strange stories sometimes." She stared at Hunger and softly muttered, "Master, how could there be someone in this world worthy of being your master?" "You don't remember me, nor do you remember who you are?" she asked softly, her voice dreamy. It was the first time in her life that she felt like she had fallen into dream. That soul-piercing dragon cry and the vermilion figure before her seemed to all be a dream. "Of course I do," Hunger crisply declared. "I am Hunger, Master's favorite Hunger. But who are you, big sister? Why do you give me such a weird feeling? Ooh, it's really weird. I always listen to Master when he tells me to never randomly come out, but I felt like I really, really wanted to see you." "Hunger," she gently murmured this name, then softly answered, "because we were once the best of friends." Drip. Tears fell within white light, dripping onto the ground. Covered in a layer of lustrous white radiance, the surrounding plants around her seemed to have been reborn as they released a vitality more than twice that of before. "Ah," Hunger gaped, her face full of shock. "Friends us? Big sister, why are you crying?" "I'm not." Shen Xi gently shook her head. A soft smile graced her lips as she held out a hand that slowly neared Hunger. However, the fingers immersed in white light were unable to touch her as they quietly passed through a head of vermilion. Spirit body. She truly had become this human man's sword spirit. He only Master can touch me, you know," Hunger beamed. "But as long as Master says it's okay, you can touch me too." Shen's eyes retrieved her hand and asked, as if she was also talking to herself, You were clearly inflicted with a devil poison that even Lord Li Xiu was unable to cleanse. How are you still alive? Could it be the sky poison pearl? Eh? Hunger's eyes brightened as she vigorously nodded and said, "Way-oh, big sister, you're so awesome. I just happened to be inside the sky poison pearl, you know. It's super big inside, super comfortable to sleep in, and it even has a ton of really yummy things. I can't finish eating them all even if I tried. It's like Hunger's home." Shen's eyes aura fluctuated as she looked at Xianxia in a new light. "He has the sky poison pearl?" "Yeah," Hunger giggled with a nod. In front of Shen's eye, she cast away all her defenses. "So, it was like that." Her voice was incredibly light and soft. "To be recognized by the sky poison pearl as its master, it seems like your master is quite the special person. Can you tell me more about your master?" "Sure, sure." Not only did Hunger not hesitate, it was evident that she was very happy about it. But then she immediately put her hands over her little belly and said a little pitifully, "But I'm a little hungry all of a sudden." Shenzai smiled. With a wave of her white hands, a jade white short sword appeared within her grasp. "Is this okay?" It was apparent that she was very familiar with what Hunger liked to eat. "Wah!" Hunger's eyes brightened, shouting as she pounced over. Grabbing onto the short sword, she took huge bites out of the sword without care, stunning the onlooking He Ling for quite a while. She had never seen Shenzai like this, nor did she understand anything the Vermilion girl had said. Eastern Divine Region, Eternal Heaven God Realm. After the strange turn of events at the Moon God Realm's wedding celebration, the various star realms were all sent back to the Eternal Heaven God Realm amidst confusion. Aside from those star realms and sects with disciples that had been selected to become heaven-chosen children, the others all left in great haste. Mu Bingyun allowed Mu Huanji to lead the Divine Ice Phoenix sect disciples back, but she herself remained and did her best to find Yunqi and Xia Qingyu's whereabouts. But even after several days had passed, there was no word from either Yunqi or Xia Qingyu. One day, when Mu Bingyun was about to go ask to see the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, an icy silhouette flashed before her, and Mu Xunian silently came out from the air. "Big sister," Mu Bingyun seemed to finally have found support once she saw Mu Xunian. "Where have you been these couple of days? Why couldn't I contact you?" "Yunqi, he's currently, I don't even know what I should do." The Moon God Realm's affairs had pretty much imploded. It would not take many days for everyone to know about the ridicule of a king realm, so there was no reason for Mu Xunian to not know about it. As for the Moon God Realm's fury, that would naturally fall upon the heads of Yunqi and Xia Qingyu. That was the fury of a king realm. "Where is he?" Mu Xunian asked. Mu Bingyun shook her head. "I don't know, we still haven't heard from him." Mu Xunian's crescent brows fiercely twitched. "He isn't back yet." Mu Xunian's reaction stunned Mu Bingyun. "Of course not, I've been trying to get news about him all these days here without success. Big sister, why would you say that?" Mu Xunian did not answer for a long while. What happened? They had obviously escaped Kaianai Yinger's vile clutches. Coming back to the Eternal Heaven God Realm would be the best choice. Why weren't they back yet? No news, which meant that they had not returned to the Moon God Realm, and perhaps not even the Eastern Divine Region. Where did they go? What in the world happened? Whether it was her or Jasmine, neither of them knew that Kaianai Yinger had placed the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on Yunqi. "Big sister, what happened?" Mu Bingyun anxiously asked. Mu Xunian shook her head. "Nothing, he should be back cough." Before she finished her sentence, she suddenly gave a violent cough, her snowy mane instantly paling. Mu Bingyun was shocked. "You're injured. What happened? Who did it?" "Just a very light injury, no need to worry." Mu Xunian clearly did not want to divulge any details. Her face quickly frosted over. "Yunqi has already decided to enter the Eternal Heaven Pearl, so he will definitely return before the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm opens. Go back to Snow Song. I will stay here and wait for him." "No," Mu Bingyun rejected. "You being here is already a huge risk. If you were to be found, the consequences would be unthinkable." Mu Xunian sank into silence before answering with a slight nod of her head. "All right." Once she said that, she turned around, about to leave. "Sis, where are you going?" "Moon God Realm." Once her voice fell, her figure gradually faded, only leaving behind a light, icy afterimage. On Yunqi, moon-splitting Cascade's realm of invisibility was already considered a world-defying divine technique that would even shock a crowd of divine masters. On Mu Xunian, however, it could truly be called supernatural. As powerful as the Eternal Heaven God Realm was to her, it was like an uninhabited world. It was unknown how long Yunqi was unconscious for until he finally began to stir. When he regained consciousness, a fragrant scent assaulted his senses. "Ah, you're awake!" The delighted shout of a girl sounded beside his ears. When he opened his eyes, emerald green eyes possessed by a beautiful girl who seemed to have walked out of a painting, stared back at him. Her red-rimmed eyes and tear-stained cheeks revealed that she had been crying not too long ago. Whether it was his body or soul, he no longer felt pain. Instead of the feeble exhaustion one would feel after a lengthy period of torture and loss of consciousness, he felt incredibly comfy. He stood up in a slight daze, then saw an ocean of myriad flowers. The sounds of insects and birds were like music to his ears. The breeze was gentle, the skies were clear, and there was a ferry in front of him. Even after taking several breaths of air, Xianxia believed that he was still asleep, that he was in a celestial land inside his dream. He Ling, Xianxia's gaze fixed onto the wood spirit girl before him. He Lin's older sister. Back then, He Lin had left the hideout to find his older sister. Back then, He Lin had kneeled before him and begged him to become his master to find his older sister. Back then, He Lin had given him his wood spirit orb at his last breath, and the only request he made, with streaming tears, was to find his older sister. He had finally found her. He had not forgotten. Before he lost consciousness, she was the one who kneeled before Shen Xi and pleaded for his sake, thus causing Shen Xi to permit him entrance to the forbidden land of samsara, and simultaneously allowing him to escape the nightmare of the death-wishing mark. "I beg of you in my place, please find my sister. I am the last of the wood spirit's royal bloodline. I was the hope of the entire race, however, I'm just that useless. I couldn't protect sister, I couldn't protect my people, I couldn't do anything at all. If I carry on living, I'll only bring disaster upon big brother Xianxia, who has been nothing but sincere and good to me. This useless me, I cannot find sister, and I won't be able to protect her either. I can only be so selfish as to beg big brother Xianxia. Don't speak anymore. Don't worry, even if I have to travel through the entire God realm, I will definitely find your sister. I will protect her. I'll kill anyone who wants to harm her. Even if I have to give my life, I will never let her come to any harm. This I swear this upon my life. Thank you, big brother Xianxia. This is the only way I can repay you. When I was very young, father and mother once mentioned, our wood spirit orb was extremely special. It was called a miracle seed. I really hope that one day it will really give big brother Xianxia a miraculous power." Xianxia unwittingly covered his heart with his hand. The words He Lin said back then with his tears, and his life had never left his heart. He did not forget a single word. This time, it wasn't just He Ling who had saved him, but also He Lin. If it wasn't for his wood spirit orb, even if he wasn't dead by now, he would have been living a life worse than death. "Amen," the wood spirit girl vigorously nodded. She thought she had already cried out all her tears, but once Xianxia called out her name, tears instantly blurred her vision. "That's me, you." Seeing this man before her, who was obviously a stranger, possess an aura she was most familiar with, caused her to choke with emotion. She found it hard to speak. "Thank you for saving me." Xianxia straightened and cleanly thanked her. "My older sister, her name is He Ling." "He Ling. Then, what does she look like? Is there anything different about her features with regard to other wood spirits?" "Big sister is a very good-looking wood spirit and is the most beautiful sister in the world. She is prettier than any flower, prettier even than the stars and the moon in the night sky." Xianxia originally thought that the words He Lin had said back then were due to the instinctive admiration he felt toward his older sister. It was only now that he had seen this wood spirit girl in the flesh, right before him, that he realized He Lin had not exaggerated at all. A wood spirit's body contained the pure power of nature. Whether they were male or female, all of them possessed incredible looks. This could be considered a favor nature power gave them. He Ling was the last descendant of the wood spirit race's royal line. This was exhibited at its pinnacle before her. The beauty of all those flowers paled in comparison to her magnificence. The tear stains on her face would make the entire world mourn in sadness. The wood spirit girl shook her head. During his period of unconsciousness, she visited every day. But now that he had awakened, she timidly avoided his gaze. "How long was I asleep for?" Xianxia asked. 13 days. She answered him in a small voice and sneakily took a glance at him before immediately shifting her beautiful eyes away. He's not He Lin after all. This was the first time she had been this close to a human male. 13 days, Xianxia muttered, sighing inwardly. Even if he no longer had the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on him, he would still not be able to enter the eternal heaven divine realm in time. Seeing the ring on his finger which came from Keijai, he sadly thought to himself, Jasmine, I am already destined to never fulfill the promise I made to you, and Keijai. Kaian Yi, Ying, When this name and that golden figure flashed in his head, an evil energy instantly gushed from his heart. But once his gaze met the wood spirit girl in front of him, he rigidly suppressed it. That woman was too frightening. She could use a single finger to destroy stars with her profound strength. Her schemes were deep. And although she was as vicious as a snake, she just happened to be extremely cautious as well. She was able to evade the eyes and ears of the world. Yet when she struck out against someone like him who could not resist her at all outside the eastern divine region, she did not hesitate to inflict him with the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. Xianxia was a person who never feared the strong. Back when he was only in the divine soul realm, he dared to go against the entire black soul divine sect alone and bring mayhem to both their realm king and sect. Kaian Yinger, however, was just too powerful. In front of her, Xianxia clearly felt like he was an ant under the suppression of a heavy mountain. No matter how he did his best with his power, methods, or thoughts, he could not move a single inch. She had already dealt her hand, implanting the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on him, so there was no reason for her to hold back. Now that he could not enter the eternal heaven pearl, did this mean that he had to live his life under her shadow? Xianxia's scalp went numb just thinking about her dreadfulness and the torture he had just suffered from the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. His soul shivered as he thought to himself, Kaian Yinger, I won't die this easily. If there comes a day that you fall in my hands, I'll rape you 10,000 times before I hack you into pieces. He gave his life's most malicious curse to Kaian Yinger. Indeed, due to the disparity between them, he could only think about it. What's wrong? Are you hurting again? He Ling anxiously asked when she saw Xianxia's expression begin to slightly distort. Xianxia recovered his senses and hurried replied, No, I was only thinking about some things. What about that senior Shen Xi? I haven't thanked her for saving my life. He Ling's gaze shifted to where the bamboo house stood in the ocean of flowers and said softly, Master is currently in meditation. We can't disturb her when she's in meditation, but Master has been suppressing your Brahma soul death-wishing mark every day so she won't meditate too long. You should be able to see her soon. All right, Xianxia answered with a nod and then asked, So what kind of a person is Senior Shen Xi? I've never heard of her before I came here. Kaian Yinger had said that she was the only person who could release the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. With her level of power, there was no doubt in her words. Yet Shen Xi was able to. And now he did indeed not feel the pain of the death-wishing mark. What kind of person was she to actually suppress a power at the level of Kaian Yinger? No, wait. Kaian Yinger said that if someone was afflicted with her death-wishing mark, even a god emperor would wish for death and beg for mercy. Could she be even stronger than a god emperor? Moreover, the place where she lived was actually the biggest forbidden ground in the dragon god realm. He Ling thought about it, then replied, Master is a really powerful, really great person. It was Master who saved me 3 years ago, and because she pitied me since I was alone, she brought me here. But I don't really know anything else about Master. I only know that something seems to be restricting Master, forcing her to remain here. Even though she can leave once in a while, she can't leave for long or she'll disappear. Disappear? This word left Xianxia dumbstruck. That's what Master said, He Ling said with a light nod. Master meditates every day in order to break free from this restriction. This time, because of me, Master's going to take more time to break the restriction. She hung her head, tightly biting her lips. More time. Was not just 10 or 100 years, but 20,000 years. Xianxia was stunned, then said hurriedly, No, not because of you, because of me. He had heard everything Shen Xi's gentle voice had said when he was outside the forbidden land of Samsara. He remembered that she would waste a full 20,000 years of heart's blood if she were to save him. This meant that she had delayed breaking free of the restriction by 20,000 years when she saved him. He scratched his head. This was another huge freaking favor he couldn't repay. He had always encountered all sorts of disasters in his life before meeting his saviors one after another. He wasn't sure if he should grieve or rejoice about it. It was no wonder that she was still firm in her rejection when Xia Qingyu pleaded to her utmost. A whole 20,000 years, even to divine masters. This length of time was extremely long. After all, humans in the divine master realm had a lifespan of 50,000 years. But in the end, she had actually agreed to save him. This was simply inconceivable. He Ling still shook her head and then lifted her gaze. Her eyes, which had evaded Yun Qi's since the very start, suddenly fixed on him. She asked with an extremely soft voice, "Can you tell me what happened to my Liner? How did he die?" When she said that, Yun Qi saw a trace of deep pain in He Ling's crystalline green eyes. Yun Qi had long known that the relationship between the siblings was extremely tight due to He Lin's worrying about her. To He Lin's death did not just contain the impact of losing her last relative, but the annihilation of the Wood Spirit royal family's line. "All right." Yun Qi nodded. Even if it was extremely cruel, he had to tell He Ling. "I met He Lin in a lower star realm called the Darkia realm. At that time, I wholeheartedly wanted a Wood Spirit orb." Then he told He Ling everything, about how his desire for a Wood Spirit orb led him to enter the Darkia realm, led him to purchase He Lin, about how he couldn't kill He Lin in the final moment and instead sent him back to their hideout, which ended up in a massacre of Wood Spirits. He told her everything in detail, and dictated every word and action He Lin had said and done to her, all the way to when He Lin offered him his royal Wood Spirit orb, to when he finally tearfully dissipated in his arms. He Ling silently listened without interrupting him. When she heard all those familiar names and then heard him say that they had all died, her snowy hands tightly covered her lips as teardrops crazily poured down. Her entire body shook violently, as though she was amidst a freezing windstorm. "Dead, all dead," she whimpered as she sobbed, each word bringing about more tears. Yun Qi did not dare to look her in the eye. "I was the one who harmed them. I was the one who brought disaster to that place. I burned the mastermind, lay Qian Feng's corpse where they rested, but—" Yun Qi's voice suddenly stopped there, because he saw a green-colored droplet fall to the land beside his legs. He abruptly lifted his head, and in his shock, he saw 2 streaks of emerald green water stains on He Ling's snowy mane. That was the color of a Wood Spirit's blood. What was even scarier was that her originally emerald green eyes were covered in a heavy layer of gray. Yun Qi's heart lurched. He quickly held onto He Ling's shoulders. He Ling. You, Granny Qingyi, Uncle Qingmu, Fei Yan, Zhu Yin, Qingzhu are all dead, all dead." Each and every soft cry came with the bleeding of her heart. Her eyes were unfocused. There was only pain, despair, and more gray, a kind of gray which definitely should not have appeared on a Wood Spirit. "He Ling!" Yun Qi forcefully shook her delicate shoulders and said anxiously, "Listen to me. They're not here anymore. You are the last descendant and hope of the Wood Spirit royal family, so you have to stay strong. Since I have He Lin's Wood Spirit orb, I can be considered half a Wood Spirit. I will go look for the other Wood Spirits with you and protect them from now on. You mustn't." A hand powerlessly pushed him away as He Ling turned around and ran away, leaving behind a lingering trail of green blood. "He Ling," Yun Qi quickly stood up. Right when he was about to give chase, a soft sigh came from behind him. Let her go." Yun Qi stilled and then turned about. Bathed in a pure and holy white light, her face was indiscernible, and only her beautiful, illusory figure could seen. She was obviously within reach, yet it seemed like she was standing at an unreachable height. Shen Xi. Qi bowed with heartfelt gratitude. "Thank you for the great mercy you have shown in saving my life." "There's no need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, you should thank Linger." Before meeting Shen Xi, Yun Qi had never thought that a person's voice could actually be so pleasant to the ear. It was as soft as a wispy cloud and as beautiful as nature's song. It simply sounded as if it was celestial music that had descended from the heavens, something that should not exist in this dirty, mortal realm. That celestial voice lingered around Yun Qi's ear, as a bizarre feeling of weakness spread throughout Yun Qi's entire body. It was only after being dazed for half a breath that he finally spoke. "The debt that I owe He Ling, and the debt that I owe Senior Shen Xi, this junior definitely will not dare to ever forget them." "Please rise." Shen Xi's voice became even gentler. "From today onward, there will be no need for you to be formal with me or to pay any obeisance towards me. The customs of mortals do not exist in this place." Yun Qi was stunned by those words, and he rose to his feet as he said, "I understand. This junior will remember. Stretch out your hand." As she said those gentle words, Shen Xi had already started to slowly extend her right arm. That hand was extremely beautiful. It was more flawless than first snow, more lustrous than divine jade. It was as if a celestial maiden had stretched out her supple hand from a dream. Furthermore, the hazy white light radiating from that hand also increased the feeling that this was an illusion by several degrees. Yun Qi unconsciously caught his breath. To think that a woman's hand could be so beautiful that it would actually take his breath away. Moreover, even his own stretched-out hand seemed to freeze in midair, as if it was actually a bit reluctant to draw near to hers, as if he was afraid that he would profane her. Shen Xi's wrist made a small movement, and as her jade finger pointed outwards, a cluster of white light flew towards Xianxia, coming into contact with the back of his hand. Immediately, fine and delicate golden markings appeared on Xianxia's body, and in the blink of an eye, they covered his entire body. The Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark. When the golden markings started to flash, it was also the signal for the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark to start to violently flare up. But at this time, even though Xianxia's body was clearly covered by golden markings, he did not feel the slightest bit of pain. He glanced downwards only to discover that a very thin layer of incomparably pure and lustrous white profound light was shining on top of the golden markings. Following a slight movement of Shen Xi's jade finger, that lustrous white profound light became slightly more dense. What kind of strength was this? Xianxia muttered in his heart. It was not any kind of power that he recognized, and it was definitely not pure profound energy either. Yet it was a power that could contain such a degree of purity. After that soft and tender arm was withdrawn, Shen Xi said in a soft voice, "The Brahma Soul Death-Seeking Mark afflicting your body has been suppressed, but in the coming months, there is still a possibility that it will flare up again. However, the pain you experience should be a pain that you are able to endure. You should thank the wood spirit orb in your body. If not, your body would not be able to react to my power in such an intimate fashion. Normally, suppressing the mark to such an extent would require more than 10 times the amount of time." The wood spirit orb reacted to her power in an intimate fashion. "I will suppress it once every 24 hours, and during this period the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark will dissipate in an extremely slow fashion. Furthermore, if it is not suppressed for more than 24 hours, the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark will once again take root inside of you, and all of the previous efforts would have been for naught. Please remember this particular point." "Yes," Xianxia said as he nodded his head. "I'll be in your care, Senior Shen Xi." Shen Xi's words meant that before the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing had completely dissipated, he would be unable to leave this place. If not, he would once again completely fall into that deep abyss where he would not be able to die even if he wanted to. "Senior Shen Xi, if I may be so presumptuous, does this junior really have to stay here for 50 years? Xianxia asked, his heart filled with boundless complex feelings. Shen Xi did not give a direct answer to that. Instead, she spoke softly. "Even if you have an untold number of worries in the outside world, you still need to remain in this place until the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark has fully dissipated. Because other than me and the person who afflicted you with that mark, no one else can release you from it." "I understand," Xianxia said with a small nod of his head. Shen Xi turned around. She clearly existed in this world, but when one looked at her, a feeling that it was all just an illusion would well up in one's heart. It was like this for Xianxia as well. "The girl who delivered you to this place left the Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace here for you. It is just outside the barrier. Go and retrieve it." He had not needed Shen Xi's reminder. After he had woken up, Xianxia had sensed that there was one more thing interacting with his soul. It was the interaction between him and the Vanishing Moon Celestial Palace. Xia Qingyu had left and had forcefully severed the destiny that they had shared together. Yet she had left him one of the best divine tools that could be used to preserve one's life. A divine tool that could even shake off the pursuit of a divine master. As the word left his lips, he felt a slight pain pierce his heart. Xianxia forcefully sucked in a breath before he continued speaking. "When she left, did she say anything?" As she sensed Xianxia's worry and the chaos in his heart, Shen Xi said in a gentle voice, "Are you afraid that she returned to the moon god realm to face death?" It was very clear that Shen Xi had been able to understand something of the situation during the days when Xianxia had been unconscious. Even though this was a place that existed outside the mortal realm, Xianxia's name had already shaken the entire god realm. So the commotion that he and Xia Qingyu had caused was something that everyone under heaven knew. The rumors grew spicier with each retelling, and if one wanted to know, it would be all too easy. "Yes," Xianxia nodded his head. "This whole affair has definitely enraged the entire moon god realm. Moreover, she also feels an intense guilt towards her foster father and her mother. So even if they were to put her to death, she would not have a single complaint, and she would put up even less resistance." The moon god emperor was Xia Qingyu's foster father. This was a secret that extremely few people knew. But he had unconsciously blurted it out in a moment of vulnerability and disconcertion. Feelings that were like thin ice cutting off all ties. When he remembered the words that Xia Qingyu had said when she left, and when he recalled the blood stains on her moon robes, the tears that she had shed for him, the way that she had thrown away all her dignity as she begged on his behalf, and the vanishing moon celestial palace that she had left behind for him, Yuan Qi gave a deep and gloomy sigh of lamentation in his heart. If their feelings were truly as thin as ice, then why would she do all of this? You are doing this to diffuse all the resentment and anger the moon god realm has towards me. Or perhaps you are afraid that after you die, I will seek out my vengeance against the moon god realm. If these were truly the case, then you have also thought far too little of me. What you destroyed was merely a pale white wedding contract, a piece of paper. It was only a marriage contract, but everything else was still completely perfect and whole, and those are things that will never fade away. Shen Xi lapsed into a brief moment of heavy silence. After that, a light and gentle sigh came from her lips. She has placed herself in her current situation all to protect your dignity. A girl who is able to make that kind of choice, there indeed are very few girls like that in this world. Yuan Qi, but you don't need to worry. A gentle voice that was as soft as floating cotton brushed across Yuan Qi's very soul, and it was as if it was warmly and gently comforting him. When she departed, it was not with the determination to die. Instead, it seems like she had made a very important decision, perhaps. The experiences that she went through with you over the past few days has caused a few changes to occur in her heart and mind. Perhaps I should say it in a way that is more fitting to her situation. Underneath that white glow, Shen Xi faintly lifted her eyes, and that warm and cozy celestial voice seemed to contain several degrees of mysterious expectation. Her heart of glazed glass has started to awaken. The heart of glazed glass has started to awaken. Yuan Qi clearly did not understand the implications behind those words as he was left somewhat dumbfounded. Will awakening it bring her the protection of heaven? It will not. Completely contrary to Yuan Qi's expectations, Shen Xi shook her head instead. The world has said that the heart of glazed glass is part of the remaining power of the ancestral god, so it is above the laws of heaven, and thus, the one who possesses it can obtain the protection of heaven. But in reality, those are merely fabrications that the world assumes is correct. A look of shock and astonishment appeared on Yuan Qi's face. The woman who possessed the heart of glazed glass was called the Daughter of the Heavens, and was known as the one who received the protection of the heavens. This was not just something the everyday man on the street was saying. It was something that even divine masters and the god emperors themselves firmly believed. Then what does the heart of glazed glass starting to awaken actually imply? Yuan Qi asked. Once the heart of glazed glass awakens, one's power, wisdom, vision, and soul will all undergo changes which appear strange on the surface. But their speed of growth will become so fast that it would be inconceivable to a normal person, and the changes to their wisdom and vision will cause them to no longer be willing to be under anyone else at the very least. That person definitely will no longer be weak, hesitant, or bewildered. The eternal heaven ancestor was the first example of this all those years ago. She was originally a mortal woman, yet she became the first eternal heaven god emperor, and she even convinced the eternal heaven pearl to submit to her. The heart of glazed glass is, for all intents and purposes, a true, divine miracle. I had originally thought that it would not be possible for another heart of glazed glass to appear in this world, but perhaps she is the final divine miracle. Just on this point alone, even the term, the protection of the heavens, doesn't seem the least bit incorrect. Shen Xi's words were hard for Yuan Qi to understand, because no one had ever made clear exactly what kind of existence the heart of glazed glass was, and all the rumors and information surrounding it had been centered on the words protection of the heavens. Yet Shen Xi had given another answer, an answer completely different from the rest of them. When Kaina Yinger made her move against you, perhaps she did not think that her actions would forcibly create such a fearsome opponent. Shen Xi glanced to the side as if she was gently looking at Yuan Qi. Within 50 years, she will definitely be able to become a threat to Kaina Yinger. You need to believe in the divine miracle that exists within her body. 50 years? Why does it have to be 50 years? Yuan Qi asked in a baffled voice. Because if she isn't able to contend against Kaina Yinger within the next 50 years, you will eternally live under the dark shadow of Kaina Yinger after you leave this place. The reason she forcefully cut off all ties with you is also because she is afraid of her own failure. Shen Xi took a slow step forward. It was only a single light and gentle step, yet her body started to become more and more illusory before disappearing within those myriad flowers. but her celestial voice still lingered in his ears. "I hope that after I have said all of these things, you will be able to feel more at ease." Yun Qi quietly stood in that place, and he did not leave for a very long period of time. Shen Xi's words had not caused him to feel less tense. On the contrary, they had instead made his heart feel even heavier. "King Yu, what exactly are you going to do?" The Eternal Heaven God Realm. The day when the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm was about to be opened. All of the heaven-chosen children had gathered together long ago, but even including the young, profound practitioner who had replaced Wei Hen. Only 999 people were gathered in this place. Yun Qi was yet to be seen. The Eternal Heaven Divine Realm was right before their very eyes, and all of the gathered heaven-chosen children felt apprehension fill their hearts at the thought of being separated from the world for 3,000 years. Yet at the same time, every single one of them was also filled with great anticipation and excitement. They could cultivate with no distractions at all for 3,000 years within the Eternal Heaven Pearl, yet it would only be a short 3 years in the world outside. This was well and truly what could be called reaching the heavens in a single step. Within the crowd of people, a snow-white figure stood in the center. The people around him had given him a very wide berth. It was as if no one was willing to be near to him, and it also seemed as if he was also not willing to be close to any of them. Holy Eve's realm, Luo Changsheng. All of the injuries he had suffered at the hands of Yun Qi 1 month ago had completely recovered. At least, that was what it looked like on the surface. But a clear change had happened to the aura that he radiated. Even though it was still as gentle and warm as water, the depths of his eyes now contained a startlingly sinister malevolence. When he had fought Yun Qi the first time, even though he had lost, all of his best points had been up on display. Furthermore, he battled with every bit of power and will that he had, so his reputation had only been increased by that loss. But during the second battle, at the same time he had become a divine king. The other side of himself that had been hiding in the depths of his soul had erupted due to his loss against Yun Qi. In the end, this caused him to not only lose some profound strength, it also caused him to lose all of his face and dignity. Compared to the past, his entire person had undergone a complete and utter change at the very least. That was what the people who had met once again all felt. However, even though he had lost to Yun Qi, and even though that loss had been incredibly miserable, he was still Luo Changsheng, the exceptional genius who possessed 3 divine powers and could use 3 different elements, the youngest divine king in the history of the Eastern Divine Region. Just what heights would he reach after 3,000 years? This was something that no one dared to estimate. After a somewhat long period of waiting, an ancient figure slowly strode out at this moment. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor. He was about to personally send these heaven-chosen children that had been selected during the profound God Convention into the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm. 2. All those who are gathered here are the youths on whom all the hopes of the Eastern Divine Region rests upon. As he stood in front of the young people who were gathered in this place, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's expectant gaze swept over each and every one of those youthful faces. During this period of time, all of you should have heard of the existence of that crimson crack, and you also should have understood that this is not only an honor and opportunity for all of you, it is something that carries the weight of both hope and responsibility. Of course, he said with a bland laugh, it is also very possible that this crack in the wall of primal chaos is nothing more than a crimson illusion. So you also don't need to give yourselves too much pressure, and there is even less need for your hearts and minds to become disordered by this. Dutifully improve yourselves within the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm. Do not squander this sort of opportunity. Please do not worry, Eternal Heaven God Emperor, Lu Lengchuan spoke up. As the sons and daughters of the Eastern Divine Region, if a calamity truly does break out in the future, even if we did not have this opportunity that was bestowed upon us by the Eternal Heaven Realm, we would also devote all our strength in stopping this calamity, even if it costs us our lives. If someone else had said the words that Lu Lengchuan had just said, it might very well be a very passionate form of flattery, but every word that came out of his mouth was as resolute and solid as iron. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor glanced at Lu Lengchuan. He gave a small nod and a faint smile as a look of admiration appeared on his face. After that, he said, after you have entered the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm, you will have a small independent world to yourselves, and unless you yourselves allow it, no one else will be able to enter the small worlds of the others. Whether you want to focus on your cultivation independently or whether you want to join your forces and cultivate together, it is up to your own wishes. Furthermore, once the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm closes, it will only open up 3 years later. As such, during the 3,000 years that you are inside the realm, there will be no way for you to get out. So if any incidents happen, there will also be no one who can help you. So if there is anyone who feels repulsed or terrified of these upcoming 3,000 years, you can bow out. There is no one who will force you to undertake this task. No one replied to him, because there would not be anyone who would reject such an unprecedented and enormous opportunity. Good. After that, the eternal Heaven God Emperor gave a brief nod of his head. With a small wave of his arm, the world around them immediately lit up with a dense white glow. The eternal Heaven-Divine Realm has been opened. Once you enter, it will mean 3,000 years. In 3 years' time, I hope that the young and tender youths who have gathered here today will be able to become yet another power for the Eastern Divine Region that can reach the heavens. Every single word that the eternal Heaven God Emperor said carried a deep hope. Go on in then. Wait a minute. Just as the eternal Heaven God Emperor's voice had fallen, 4 anxious voices rang out in the air simultaneously. Lu Lengchuan, Huo Poyan, and Shui Meiyan. Astonishingly enough, the other person was actually Luo Changsheng. Huo Poyan took a step forward as he spoke in an anxious voice. Brother Xianxia, he. The eternal Heaven God Emperor raised a hand before giving a slow shake of his head. Actually, all of you should have entered the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm this morning. But now it is already evening. Such is the will of heaven. Xianxia, the divine child that had radiated such heaven-shaking brilliance on that conferred God stage. There was no doubt that the eternal Heaven God Emperor was more disappointed and disconsolate than anyone else at the fact that Xianxia was not able to enter the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm. These were the young people who had all demonstrated their extraordinary skills and talents during the profound God Convention, and all of them were so young that they were below 60 years of age. So for Xianxia not to enter the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm meant that there would be a whole 3,000-year gap between them and him once they had emerged. Furthermore, the level of the aura in the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm was not only exceptionally high, but it also allowed any profound practitioner who cultivated there to be truly free of all distractions. So the 3,000 years within this realm was comparable to 6,000 years in the outside world. And even if one were to say it was the equivalent of 10,000 years, it would not be deemed as unwarranted or excessive talk. This also meant that after 3 years, the Xianxia who had originally reigned above them all would become as tiny as a speck in front of them. Even the weakest among them would far exceed Xianxia in strength and level once these 3 years had passed. They would become the cornerstones of the Eastern Divine Region, while Xianxia, who had not entered the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm, would remain a God child from the younger generation, and nothing more than that. The time has come. Put aside all thoughts which may distract you. From today onwards, all of the profound practitioners in the Eastern Divine Region will eagerly anticipate the moment all of you emerge from the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm. I hope that 3 years from now, every single one of you will be able to radiate a light that will illuminate the entire Eastern Divine Region. The eternal Heaven God Emperor gave a push of his hand as a pure wind that could not be resisted, immediately swept all of the young profound practitioners into the white light behind them. The world behind them immediately glowed with a strong white light. Several breaths later, after the white light had dissipated, the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm had slowly sealed itself, and the young profound practitioners who had been sent into that place would only be able to emerge after 3 years had passed. Moreover, after spending 3,000 years in the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm, each and every one of them would undergo incredibly enormous changes. This was especially true for those young profound practitioners who had high hopes placed on them, the ones who possessed extraordinary talent. It was very likely that they would go from being excellent and famous people from the younger generation to personages who would be able to reach the highest level in the Eastern Divine Region, or perhaps even the highest level in the entire realm of the gods. Yet Xianxia, the one who had the greatest expectations placed upon him, just had to be the person who had missed out. The eternal Heaven-Divine Emperor himself actually had the unique right to freely enter and exit the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm. But since Xianxia was not among those who had entered, his interest had waned, and he no longer entertained this idea. All of the heaven-chosen children had entered the eternal Heaven-Divine Realm, Yet the eternal Heaven God Emperor had not left the place yet. He looked at the empty world in front of him before he suddenly gave a heavy sigh of lament. "O ancestor, if he arrives here afterwards, is there truly no way for us to reopen the eternal Heaven-Divine realm for him? This child's performance and the strange state of his body were something that you personally witnessed yourself. Even though it is hard to completely believe the words regarding him, becoming a true god, given his ceiling, he might just be able to truly break through all the known limits and ceilings at this point. As such, if the Crimson Calamity truly erupts in the future, he would have become our greatest and most brilliant hope at that time. For the King realms, they always desired to become ever stronger, but at the same time, they definitely did not want anyone to become stronger than them. Xianxia's 9-stage lightning tribulation, child of the heavens and true god prophecy. Every single one of them had fiercely plucked at the nerves of all the great king realms, causing them to shake from shock and covet his powers, to the point where they envied or even feared him. All of them wanted to know the secrets behind Xianxia's aptitude and natural endowments. If they could, none of them would spare anything to steal him for themselves. If they were not able to, when Xianxia truly started to display strength which surpassed all understanding, they would definitely start plotting to wipe him from the face of this earth. As the peak existences within this primal chaos dimension, the king realms would definitely not allow anything stronger than them to emerge. The only exception to this rule was the eternal heaven god realm. This was a king realm that had followed the righteous path since the advent of its existence. A king realm that was revered by all the profound practitioners in the Eastern divine region. As the realm king of the eternal heaven realm, the eternal heaven god emperor truly admired the freak that was Xianxia, and he also truly wished to see him become strong and become the glorious light of the Eastern divine region, so that he could also become the strongest power that could oppose that calamity in the future. So he had never envied or coveted Xianxia, and he had definitely not thought of killing him. On the contrary, once Xianxia's light had gotten a bit too bright, he started having the intention to protect him. The reverence the Eastern divine region held towards the eternal heaven realm had never been an empty or hollow one. Even Jasmine had emphasized one thing to Xianxia. She had stressed to him that he should not leave the eternal heaven realm at all before entering the eternal heaven divine realm, because the eternal heaven god emperor definitely would not harm him. But no one had thought that such an incident would have taken place within the moon god realm. But on the other hand, since Yinger had already known about Xianxia's greatest secret, and had decided to ensure that he would not enter eternal heaven divine realm, even if that incident in the moon god realm had not happened, even if he had not taken a single step outside of the eternal heaven realm, he would have still been struck by Yinger's poisonous hands. And it was highly possible that even the eternal heaven god realm would not have been able to sense it. This was simply how dreadful and fearsome Yinger was. As the eternal heaven good emperor's voice faded away, an ancient voice suddenly rang out in the empty world in front of him. To be able to open it once for that period of 3,000 years is already the utmost limit of the eternal heaven pearl's power. Given the aura of primal chaos which grows more turbid with each passing day, I do not know how many years it will take for it to recover to the point where it could open up once more. That ancient voice was hollow and indistinct, as if it had come from an incredibly distant world, yet it also contained a world weariness that was heavy to the point where it was inconceivable. AI, the eternal heaven god emperor let out another long sigh of lament. Could it be that this is truly the will of the heavens? I had originally thought that he would return to the eternal heaven realm within the next few days, yet there still hasn't been any correspondence from him yet, so it's likely that he is no longer within the Eastern divine region. I'm worried that someone has already taken the opportunity to make a move against him in secret. The people who can actually mount a pursuit of the vanishing moon's celestial palace can be counted on one hand. However, each and every one of those people just so happen to be the ones who would most likely covet him the most. Sigh. That is his own destiny. There is no need for you to brood over it any longer. The ancient voice rang out once again. During the past few years, you have poured all your strength into preparing to face this crimson calamity. There are very few who believe, and there is only you who has no choice but to believe. The eternal heaven god emperor could hear a dense heaviness that was far heavier than it was before in that distant voice. He furrowed his brows as he said, "Could it be that it has grown heavier yet again?" This feeling of unease grows closer every day. However, this feeling does not come from myself, but the eternal heaven pearl. Sigh. The eternal heaven god emperor let out a heavy sigh as his deep worry ate away at his heart. Just what exactly lies behind that crimson crack to cause to even the eternal heaven pearl to feel fear? Just what sort of calamity is it? The empty space remained silent for a long period of time. The eternal heaven god emperor gave a deep bow and prepared to leave. But it was at this moment, the voice which sounded as if it was coming from the ancient past once again rang out in the air. Now that it reached this point, it is also time for me to tell you about that matter. The eternal heaven god emperor raised his head and asked, "That matter? The first year that we discovered that crack in the wall of primal chaos, the eternal heaven pearl told me that it had sensed a very unique aura, and even though that aura was very weak and blurry, it had given it an extremely remote sense of familiarity." Familiarity. It caused the eternal heaven pearl to feel a sense of familiarity. The eternal heaven god emperor's eyebrows furrowed once again. Initially, the eternal heaven pearl was unable to confirm it, but as the crack in the wall of primal chaos continued to grow, that sense of familiarity grew more and more intense, and clear it was intense enough that even though the eternal heaven pearl did not want to believe it, it had no choice but to. What exactly did it sense? The eternal heaven god emperor asked. Every single word that had been spoken by the voice that rang in his ears contained a boundless heaviness. The ancient voice did not directly answer. Instead, it slowly said, "In the ancient era of the gods, there were 7 great heavenly profound treasures: the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, the primordial seal of life and death, the eternal heaven pearl, the sky-poison pearl, the world piercer, and the mirror of samsara. 4 of these belonged to the god race, the other 2 belonged to the devil race, and the final one fell into the lower realms. The 4 heavenly profound treasures owned by the god race represented the 4 great creation gods. The heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo-E had wielded the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. The creation goddess of life, Li Xiu, held the primordial seal of life and death. The creation god of order, Zai Qi, controlled the eternal heaven pearl, and the other heavenly profound treasure, the world piercer, belonged to the creation god of the elements, the god who had eventually become known as the evil god. The world piercer possessed the highest level of dimensional power, and it could pass through any space. Within our ancient records, the divine profound arcs which could step through space that was owned by the god race. They were artifacts that the creation god of the elements had imbued with the power of the world piercer. After his battle with the heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo-E, the creation god of the elements abandoned his title and name as a creation god, and he called himself the evil god from then onwards. After that incident happened, there were no longer any legends or records concerning the world piercer appearing in the world anymore. During the evil infant calamity, which had ended the era of the gods, the only god who could have escaped was the evil god who possessed the world piercer. Yet he was also afflicted by the myriad tribulations poison and eventually died from it in the end. But now that I think about it, perhaps the world piercer had long since left his possession. The words the ancient voice said caused a shock that grew heavier and heavier to appear on the eternal heaven god emperor's face. "Ancestor, what you're implying, could it be that?" "That's correct." The originally deep and heavy voice turned even heavier. Accompanying the appearance of the crack in the wall of primal chaos was the aura of the world piercer. The eternal heaven god emperor's body shuddered violently at those words. After that, he froze for a long while before he gave a heavy gasp and asked, "Why would the world piercer be outside of the primal chaos dimension? And just why would it cause the eternal heaven pearl to feel dread?" It's very clear that even though the dimensional power of the world piercer is able to pierce through all space within the primal chaos dimension, it is not able to pierce through the wall of primal chaos. But it is extremely likely that it is able to open a dimension outside the primal chaos dimension. The eternal heaven god emperor was completely dazed upon hearing that, and he did not understand the meaning of those words for a period of time. If that is true, then the race that should have perished outside of the primal chaos dimension all those years ago, it is very possible that they have relied on the dimension opened up by the world piercer to survive up to this point. The eternal heaven god emperor's brows furrowed yet again as he remained at a loss. But in the next instant, it was as if he had suddenly been struck by a bolt of lightning. His entire body convulsed as his complexion instantly turned as pale as a ghost. Following that, his arms, legs, beard, and even his entire body started to tremble uncontrollably. Could it be that? No, it's not possible. It's not possible that such an absurd thing could possibly happen. Perhaps no one would believe that the distinguished eternal heaven god emperor himself would actually be so shocked that all the color had drained from his face in a single instant. This is millions of times more terrifying than any previous guesses we have made, yet it is also the most likely one. The eternal heaven god emperor's complexion was already so white that it was frightening, and he did not speak for a very long period of time. The eternal heaven pearl has told me that it no longer communicates with the world piercer. Moreover, the time the world piercer's aura completely disappeared from this world also completely coincides with the time that race was expelled. The question is, just how exactly did the world piercer that belonged to the evil god end up in the hands of that race? When that crimson crack completely ruptures, it will not only be a calamity that will erupt from that, it is also possible that it will expose ancient truths and resentments. It's just that in a weak world where gods no longer exist, there is no way we can endure these truths and resentments. Right now, the only thing we can do is put in our greatest effort before praying that everything is merely a delusion that will not happen. The eternal heaven god emperor remained rooted in place. Within that empty world, the only thing he could hear was the incredibly intense sound of his heart thumping. Realm, after passing through both the eastern and western divine regions, after a long period of lonely isolation, Xianxia had finally returned to the moon god realm. Upon viewing the moon god realm that was right in front of her eyes, her heart and mind were completely different from what they had been at any instant before this. She managed to pass the moon god realm's isolating barrier with no trouble at all, and before she had ventured too far forward, 2 moon guards had discovered her aura. Xianxia. 2 white lights suddenly flashed as the great moon guards had already appeared in front of Xianxia, their strong and domineering auras squarely locking onto her. "You still dare to return?" Just as their explosive shouts had left their mouths, a low and heavy voice rang out from behind them, "Withdraw." Following the rippling of space, a gaunt man whose entire body was clad in golden armor appeared out of thin air. Both of his eyes released a dense golden light that was hard for people to look directly into, and a powerful oppressive might that froze the air around him accompanied that golden glare. The moment he appeared, the 2 great moon guards felt their whole bodies go tense as they hurriedly bowed down. "We greet the golden moon god." Golden moon god Yue Wuji looked at Xianxia with a complex look in his eyes before he said in a calm voice, "Our king has been waiting for you for many days." Xianxia did not say anything. She merely gave a faint nod of her head as she took to the air and stole past him, heading toward Divine Moon City. It was a huge and spacious great hall, and even the gentle moonlight was unable to eradicate the cold loneliness of this place. At the end of the great hall, the moon god emperor was seated on the seat meant for the god emperor, his face expressionless. Xianxia slowly strode forward and stopped in the heart of the great hall before she slowly knelt to the ground. "Qingyu," the moon god emperor gave a cold and gloomy sigh, "when you returned this time, weren't you afraid that I would kill you?" "Foster father won't kill me," she knelt on the ground and gloomily replied. The moon god emperor's face immediately twisted up, but he could not keep it up and his features relaxed as he said in a manner which seemed caught between crying and laughter, "Qingyu, couldn't you have at least asked for forgiveness and made a display of obedience? This stubborn streak of yours is completely unlike your mother all those years ago." Xianxia closed her beautiful eyes before she spoke softly. "The debt of gratitude I owe to foster father is as deep as an ocean, yet Qingyu ended up harming foster father's reputation for the rest of his life. Even though foster father definitely won't kill me, Qingyu also doesn't have the face to beg for foster father's forgiveness." The moon god emperor's brows furrowed before he let out an empathic sigh. "If it was several decades ago, I might really have killed both you and that kid Xianxia in a fit of extreme rage. But I still remember what happened all those years ago when I had become completely deranged and had lost all rationality. It took me years to recover, and I even did many things that in retrospect were completely cruel and insane. But you are not your mother, and the current me is different from the me in the past as well." This time, my rage lasted less than 2 hours before I regained my composure. The wedding that day, I had said it was for the future of the moon god realm, but in actuality, it was still a preposterous move motivated by my disordered heart and selfish desires. Furthermore, you were also bound by the debt of gratitude you felt that you owed me due to the past few years. So perhaps the appearance of that kid Xianxia was the will of heaven after all. So destroying all of those plans is fine as well. Now that I've carefully thought it over for the past few days, if you had not made the choice that you had made that day, I, and especially your mother, on the contrary, may actually have been disappointed in you." Xia Qingyu raised her head, her gaze trembling. "Foster father." "Heh heh." The moon god emperor shook his head. "Are you really shocked that I'd think this way? I'm pretty shocked myself as well, or perhaps my time is really coming soon, so there is nothing I can't accept or figure out anymore. Foster father, you don't need to say anything else." The moon god emperor waved his hand, his face composed. "It's not that I totally believe the prophecy given by the heavenly mystery realm. Rather, it is because a similar feeling has been coming more and more frequently to me during this period of time, and it has also been becoming more and more intense. Qingyu, if you truly want to make up for the guilt you feel towards me, and you want to repay the favor and grace that I have shown you over the past few years." The moon god emperor's chest rose and fell, his eyes solemn and heavy. "Inherit my divine power. The reason why I have done my utmost to be good to you over the past few years is because I want to have some peace of mind and a clear conscience when I transfer my divine power to you. I know that in the end this is something that I am imposing upon you, but this is the only selfish desire that I cannot let go of. But the good thing is that after what happened at the wedding ceremony, you no longer need to, nor will you ever be able to, become the moon god emperor anymore. Even though it is a great regret of mine, I think that it will be much easier for you to accept it now, so I can feel more at peace with myself as well." Xia Qingyu did not reply. "Tomorrow I will announce to the public that I am taking you as my foster daughter." The moon god emperor had wanted to continue, but after a moment of hesitance, his tone changed slightly and he said, "Go see your mother. She has been worrying constantly about you over the past few days. Put her worries to rest first. We will talk about everything else again tomorrow." "Yes," Xia Qingyu softly replied. After that, she got to her feet and began to slowly walk away from the hall. "Oh yes, what happened to Xianxia?" the moon god emperor suddenly asked. "He did not enter the eternal heaven pearl, and to this day, there hasn't been any other news about him. The eternal heaven realm must definitely be feeling deeply regretful that the situation has turned out the way it is." Xia Qingyu stood there quietly. She did not reply. The moon god emperor waved his hand. "Fine, fine. Go quickly to see your mother then." But Xia Qingyu did not leave. Instead, she suddenly said, "Foster father, the words that you said to me on this day 3 years ago, I now truly understand them. I also suddenly understand that the true obstacle that prevented me from returning all these years has never been foster father at all, but it has been myself all along." After she finished speaking, she started walking once more and she quietly left the hall. The moon god emperor had been struck dumb by those words, confusion and suspicion writ large on his face. But all of a sudden, his eyebrows jumped and he leapt to his feet, an extremely rare expression of ecstatic joy and emotion on his face. "Qingyu, if you have truly understood, then even if I die 10,000 times over, I will have no regrets. The small world where Yue Wugu resided had been a hidden secret all along, and very few people could approach it." As she drew near, the surroundings had become quiet and still. Xia Qingyu's footsteps were slow and heavy, and no one could comprehend her current emotional state. From the moment she saw Xianxia again, her heart and soul had received consecutive impacts that were heavy enough to overturn her entire world. To choose, to abandon, to flee for one's life, to feel fear and terror, to feel absolutely helpless, to face death, to feel utter despair, and to receive hope. She felt a chill run through her entire body, and her footsteps came to a sudden stop at this moment. This was because a dreadful force that could not be resisted firmly latched onto her body, pressing down on her. At this moment, a woman's incomparably cold and icy voice rang in her ear. "Where is Xianxia?" Xia Qingyu was unable to turn around. Her eyes darted to the side, and she saw the corner of snow-white skirt and several icy blue strands of hair. This definitely was not someone from the moon god realm, yet she could infiltrate the moon god realm without being detected. "Who are you?" Xia Qingyu asked instead. "Answer my question, where is Xianxia?" The woman's voice grew even colder as an icy spear stretched out from behind Xia Qingyu and rested lightly against her throat. Xia Qingyu lapsed into a brief moment of silence before suddenly speaking. "Ah, so you are Xianxia's master, Senior Mu Xuanian." The air immediately grew colder by several degrees. After several breaths of heavy silence, the icy spear that was pointed against Xia Qingyu's throat slowly melted away, and the force which had locked her in place also disappeared. Xia Qingyu turned around. her eyes coming to rest on an icy face that was so beautiful that it caused the very heavens and earth to lose their color. She was wearing snowy robes that looked similar to what Xianxia was wearing that day, and her extremely beautiful face seemed to be covered in a layer of ice, an icy might which froze any emotion on her face. Xianxia made a small curtsy as she said, "Junior Xianxia greets Senior Mu." A strange light flashed in her eyes as she raised her eyes once more. She had never thought that Snow Song Realm's Realm King, Xianxia's master, would actually be such a beauty. "How did you guess that it was me?" Mu Xuanian's icy eyes stared at Xianxia up close as she coldly asked. Xianxia answered, "Xianxia mentioned to me before that Senior Mu was his greatest benefactor in the God realm. Even though she looks cold and emotionless, she had always looked out for him in every way. Furthermore, you have taken such a huge risk in infiltrating the Moon God realm just to ask about his whereabouts. Moreover, your profound strength is extremely high, and your profound energy is extremely cold. Xianxia has only been in the Eastern Divine region for a few short years, so the only one who meets all those requirements would be Senior Mu," she continued. "Furthermore, the person who appeared outside the God realm of absolute beginning was also Senior Mu, correct?" Mu Xuanian's icy eyebrows twitched faintly. "To be able to enter the Moon God realm without being detected. With this kind of strength, it is natural that you would be able to hold off the gray-robed man at Xianxia Yinger's side. It looks like this vast Eastern Divine region has been incredibly mistaken about Senior Mu's actual strength." Mu Xuanian's icy brows narrowed slightly as she stared steadily at Xianxia for a good while. Xianxia did not try to dodge the icy and terrifying gaze that rested upon her. On the contrary, she actually looked straight at those eyes which radiated an icy blue light. "Senior, please do not worry. This junior knows what should be said and what shouldn't be said." Mu Xuanian did not refute her, but she also did not make any small talk. Instead, she icily asked once again, "Answer my question, where is Xianxia? Why is it that you came back by yourself?" "He is in the Dragon God realm," Xianxia said. "Why did you leave him in the Dragon God realm? Xianxia Yinger inflicted him with the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark." "What?" Mu Xuanian's expression drastically changed, and her aura, which had originally been extremely stable, had now started violently fluctuate. "Senior, please don't worry. The reason he was left in the Dragon God realm is because there is someone in the Dragon God realm who is helping him get rid of the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark." As she saw the change in Mu Xuanian's demeanor, Xianxia felt a needle of unhappiness and discontent prick her heart. After taking everything into account, Xianxia had only been in the Snow Song realm for 3 years. Yet he actually caused the Snow Song realm king, who was possessed of both surpassing beauty and strength, to worry for him to such an extent. Were they really just student and teacher? "It's not possible." The cold light in Mu Xuanian's eyes wavered as she was unable to keep her icy face composed. If he was truly afflicted by the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark, then other than Xianxia Yinger, no one else can get rid of it. Just who exactly? All of a sudden, her icy brows jumped and she thought of someone. "Do you mean Shen Xi?" Xianxia softly said those 2 words. Mu Xuanian's icy eyes had always been trained on Xianxia, yet she discovered that Xianxia had been incredibly calm from start to finish despite being pressured by her oppressive might. Furthermore, a girl her age shouldn't possess such composure. She was so composed that it was eerie. On the contrary, she did not know if she was mistaken, but she actually seemed to feel a faint oppressive feeling which did not seem to fade in and out of existence, coming from Xianxia's body. Can she truly purge the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark? And why did she let Xianxia stay behind? Mu Xuanian asked. It was indeed a distinct possibility that Shen Xi could indeed get rid of the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark, but she resided in the forbidden land of Samsara, and had never allowed any living creature to come near that place, much less step into it. However, she could not detect any deception or lies coming from Xianxia's body. Senior Shen Xi said herself that she could get rid of the Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark, and it will also only take about 50 years, Xianxia said in that gentle and calm voice. As for why she accepted Xianxia, it is the fruit of the good karma he previously earned with his actions. It is indeed an extremely regretful thing for him to be unable to enter the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. But for Xianxia to be able to remain at Senior Shen Xi's side while getting rid of his Brahma Soul Death-Wishing Mark, isn't it simply another extremely rare opportunity for him? Thus, I hope Senior Mu can be at ease for now, at least for the next 50 years. He will be absolutely safe. Xuanian's disordered aura slowly started to regain its composure at this moment. Indeed, being accepted by Shen Xi was indeed an extremely great opportunity for Qi. Even though the short-term gains could not be compared to the 3,000 years spent in the Eternal Heaven Pearl, the long-term gains would definitely outstrip those 3,000 years. Because it was Shen Xi, the most unique existence in the entire God realm, though he needed to first gain Shen Xi's favor. But, although it was rumored that Shen Xi was extremely gentle and graceful, behind that gentleness and grace lay an unyielding emotionlessness. It was as if she was an extremely indifferent person, someone who seemed to not have been born with all the desires and emotions that a normal person was born with. This kind of person, could he truly gain her favor, even just a little bit of it? After she obtained the answer she wanted, Xuanian's heart, which had been teetering on the edge for a long time, finally started to relax. She did not say another word, and her gaze shifted away from Xia Qingyu's body. After that, her figure slowly melted into the empty air, her aura disappearing as well. 50 years? Could he truly wait for 50 years? Xia Qingyu made a light curtsy to the place where she had been standing before turning around and leaving. Since Shen Xi made an exception for Qi and allowed him to stay, whether it was to keep a secret or due to the heart of glazed glass in your body, there was no reason not to ask you to stay as well. Xuanian's cold and clear voice suddenly rang out once again behind Xia Qingyu. Why did you give up this opportunity that other people would never even be able to beg for? Rather, you decided to return to a place where you've been judged completely guilty. Xia Qingyu's footsteps halted, and she gave a gloomy reply. The Moon God Emperor is someone to whom I owe a great debt of gratitude for saving my life, and for grooming me up to be his successor. He is also the person who is responsible for saving my mother's life, heart, and soul. Yet I have never repaid for him, and I grievously wounded his reputation instead. If I just walk away from him, how can I have any face to continue existing in this world anymore? Xuanian furrowed her eyebrows slightly. Your mother, Yue Wugu. In front of this woman who did not hesitate to infiltrate the Moon God realm for Qi's sake, Xia Qingyu frankly spoke about this secret. Xuanian's gaze shook in that instant, but she did not feel too much shock upon hearing those words. On the contrary, she felt a sort of relief wash over her. No wonder she had the heart of glazed glass. It was actually all because she had been birthed by the stainless divine body. Moreover, what can I accomplish by staying in that place? Xia Qingyu said with a soft sigh filled with emotion. After leaving that place with him 50 years later, we would have no choice but to continue to hide, run, and forever be under the protection of you and others like you. We'd have no choice but to live desperately every single day while trembling in fear. Xuanian's brows deeply furrowed. What are you trying to say? Xia Qingyu turned around, once again meeting her icy eyes. Qianai Yinger already knows the greatest secret about Qi's body. Because of that, she did not hesitate to inflict the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on him. While he is in the forbidden land of samsara for the next 50 years, Qianai Yinger won't be able to touch him. But what's going to happen in 50 years? Do you think that Qianai Yinger will stop then? Xuanian coldly replied. She won't. You are his master, someone who shows the utmost care and concern for him. Since that's the case, do you dare to kill Qianai Yinger and rid him of this danger forever? Xia Qingyu asked. Xuanian's icy eyes focused slightly. I don't dare to, and I can't kill her anyways. Right, you don't dare to. Xia Qingyu gave a light shake of her head. My mother was not harmed by the Star God realm all those years ago. She was harmed by Qianai Yinger. Yet the Moon God Emperor dared to vent his wrath against the Star God realm. But he chose to endure it when confronted with the real truth. Everyone under heaven knows that the Star God Emperor's son, the heavenly wolf Star God Zisu, died because of Qianai Yinger, yet the Star God Emperor also chose to endure this. All of you don't dare to do anything, and as strong as all of you are, not a single one of you have dared to make a move against Qianai Yinger. Thus, in 50 years, the Qi and I who have been targeted by Qianai Yinger will still only be able to hide, flee, endure, and forever live under her dark shadow, to never be able to attain true peace and security, until we one day fall completely into her hands. All our previous grievances and hatred will also never be paid back to her. Xuanian did not refute her words, nor was she able to. During those few days that I spent with Qi, I experienced many moments of helplessness. The helplessness I felt when I had to make a choice. The helplessness I felt when I abandoned something. The helplessness I felt in the face of absolute power. The helplessness I felt when I was facing death. The helplessness I felt when I was being humiliated. The helplessness I felt when I came face to face with the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, even more than that. It reminded me of the helplessness I felt when I was confronted by the calamity that struck my sect all those years ago, and the helplessness that I felt when I was unable to return home from the God realm. I've already come to hate this kind of feeling. Just what exactly are you trying to say? Muxuanian asked. Xia Qingyu raised her head to the sky and closed her eyes before she spoke in slow and measured tones. Back then, the moon god emperor told me that my possession of both the heart of glazed glass and the 9 profound exquisite body was a divine miracle unheard of and unprecedented in the entire history of the god realm. Even the eternal heaven ancestor back in the day was not my equal. Yet I just so happened to lack the one thing that matched my natural gifts, the most important thing in fact. Ambition, Muxuanian. She looked at Muxuanian before suddenly asking, Senior Mu compared to me. Yun Qi, who inherited the divine power of a creation god, is even more suited to be called a divine miracle that has been gifted to us by the heavens, and the 9-stage lightning tribulation is the greatest proof of this. Then in Senior's eyes, what is the one thing that he happens to lack the most? Ambition, Muxuanian replied without any hesitation. As long as one was an outstanding talent, who would not want their names to be known far and wide, who would not want to establish their own schools or sects, who would not want to look down proudly upon the rest of the world. Even when one reached the level of the king realms, they were all still desperately chasing after and searching for that illusory and vague divine way. Yun Qi's aptitude could only be described as monstrous, and he possessed the sole creation god inheritance in the universe. Yet he did not have a shred of that kind of ambition. His growth was exceedingly fast, but in the eyes of other profound practitioners, the reason for his desperate growth was so simplistic and pure that it was patently absurd. No one would believe that he had no interest whatsoever in the 4 words, conferred God number 1, if it was not for the sake of meeting Jasmine. Even his arrival in the God realm was motivated by something completely different from pursuing even higher levels of the divine way. He had come here just to meet with Jasmine. That's right, Xia Qingyu nodded as she gave a soft sigh. He is the one person that has the most qualifications to be ambitious, the one person who should possess such ambition, yet it just so happens that the one thing that he lacks is this ambition. The things that he cares about the most have always been his family and his women. Ambition, he never had it in the past and perhaps he will never have in the future either. And since he won't have it, then I need to have it. You've said all these things, but what exactly are you going to do? Muxuanian's icy eyes grew focused yet again. The oppressive feeling rolling off of Xia Qingyu's body was becoming more and more clear. She definitely had not been mistaken about it. Xia Qingyu's profound strength was only at the first level of the divine spirit realm, yet she could make Muxuanian feel pressure. This was something that transcended all logic. Since none of you dare to, will not, and cannot kill Xianxia Yinger, then it's up to me to do it. Xia Qingyu said those words in a very soft and gentle voice, as if she was merely talking about an ordinary, everyday thing. The heavens gifted me with the heart of glazed glass and the 9 profound, exquisite body. Then I will follow the will of the heavens and do something that a person of divine miracles ought to do. Even if I have to put my life on the line, even if I have to be unscrupulous, I will not allow him or myself to be forced to live under her dark shadow. You want to kill Xianxia? Muxuanian coldly said. What basis do you have to say such a thing? It isn't about having any basis or right to say such a thing. It is because I have no other choice. You're taking this far too lightly. Muxuanian gave her a deep look. The reason why Xianxia Yinger is so dreadful isn't because of herself alone. She has the Brahma monarch god realm behind her. She has countless admirers in the eastern, western, and southern divine regions, and just a single word from her would cause countless strong individuals to go crazy for her or even rush to their deaths. I know, Xia Qingyu said softly. So if I am defeated or killed, I will have to trouble Senior Mu to fetch him from the forbidden land of Samsara 50 years from now and advise him to stay in the dragon god realm. Oh yes, Xia Qingyu continued. I have already severed all ties with him, so we are no longer husband and wife, and he and I have nothing to do with one another. So everything that I do from this day forward, whether it goes well or does not, whether it results in fortune or disaster, whether it is righteous or evil, whether I am dead or alive, it has nothing to do with him. I can also assure Senior that whatever unscrupulous things I do in the future will definitely not involve Senior Mu or the Snow Song realm. If in the future, I am fortunate enough to be able to create a big enough opportunity, I would also trouble Senior Mew to send him back to the world that he wishes to return to. In the end, he really doesn't belong, while I can no longer return. After bowing heavily towards Mew Xuanian, Xia Qingyu turned around and left. Her slow and plodding footsteps gradually carried her out of Mew Xuanian's sight. Those footsteps had been extremely heavy, as if they were weighted down by extremely heavy shackles, as if she was resolutely walking towards an endless abyss. Mew Xuanian stood there silently, her icy brows knit tight, surging waves crashing around in her heart on the day of the wedding ceremony in the moon god realm. She had hidden herself in the air above and had seen Xia Qingyu once from afar. At that time, Xia Qingyu's eyes had been cold and lifeless, and it was as if she was trapped in an endless daze, to the point where it seemed completely empty and vacant, as if she was trapped in a dream she had not woken up from. But today's Xia Qingyu was practically a different person from the Xia Qingyu she had seen previously. When a person received consecutive violent blows, it could indeed cause a person's heart and mentality to change within a short period of time, to the point where it could completely transform a person. But if Xia Qingyu had transformed, it had really been far too drastic. Furthermore, that subtle oppressive feeling that she felt in her soul was definitely not something a transformation could bring about. Is she serious about this? Mew Xuanian muttered softly to herself. She was shocked at her own reaction, because the words that Xia Qingyu said, the words that tumbled from the lips of a girl who was not even 30 years of age, a girl whose profound strength had only reached the divine spirit realm, they should have been something completely absurd and ridiculous. This was the moon god realm, an extremely dangerous place, and Mew Xuanian was unable to linger for too long. Her figure and aura once again melted away into the air, and she did not leave a single trace behind. As she left the moon god realm and soared through the vast and empty ether, Mew Xuanian's figure reappeared, and she quietly looked towards the west. After a long while, she let out a soft sigh before saying, "Chair, the fruits of what happened today, have you ever regretted coming to the god realm?" Western Divine Region, Dragon God Realm, Forbidden Land of Samsara. Xianxia sat on the ground with both of his eyes closed as the golden markings flashed on his body. Shen Xi quietly stood in front of him, still shrouded in that white light, her celestial figure hazy. Following the downward movement of her jade finger, a cluster of white light slowly floated above Xianxia's body before completely merging into him. Following the merging of that white light into his body, the golden markings on his body disappeared as well. Xianxia stood up, and just as he was about to bow unconsciously, he immediately stopped himself as he remembered that she disliked ceremony. Instead, he got to his feet once more and said in a grateful voice, "I thank Senior Shen Xi. There's no need for that." After she softly said those indifferent words, Shen Xi turned around and left. She spent nearly all her time quietly cultivating every single day. The only time Xianxia could see her was during that short period that she needed to help him suppress the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. However, she did not immediately leave this time around. Instead, she spoke in a soft voice. "Your heart has been full of chaos. This does not help you at all in dispelling the Brahma soul death-wishing mark." "Yes, this junior will do all he can to adjust," Xianxia said as he gave a long sigh in his heart. 50 years, 50 years. I can be at peace, my ass." There was less than 2 years left to the day that he had told the little demon empress and the others he would return by. However, he had become targeted by Qianai Yinger and given her fearsomeness. As long as she did not die, even if he left this place 50 years from now, he still would not be able to return. This place could be said to be the purest, safest, and most tranquil place in the entire God realm. But Xianxia's heart and mind often wandered, and there was simply no way he could settle down. For the past few days, Shen Xi had been able to sense that Xianxia's emotions had not stabilized at all. She suddenly said, "If you want to get rid of the Brahma soul death-wishing mark, there is a way." Xianxia was stunned by those words. "What method?" "This method requires that the Brahma soul death-wishing mark be suppressed to a certain degree before it can be realized. Right now is not the right time for it," Shen Xi said in a gentle voice. "Once the opportunity arises, I will naturally let you know." To Xianxia, that was undoubtedly a huge piece of great news. He anxiously said, "If it can be like this, then that's simply fantastic. I thank Senior Shen Xi. Go and comfort Linger for a bit. The impact she received was far too big, and only you can save her now." Shen Xi started walking forward again as her celestial figure slowly faded and vanished into thin air like a gloomy mist. Her words had caused Xianxia to become dumbfounded. Save. Why did she use the word save? When one mentions a forbidden ground, people would inevitably think of a place often filled with death and sinister danger. However, this forbidden land of samsara was an absolutely beautiful celestial land that even someone who had lived for tens of thousands of years would not be able to dream up. Every single plant and flower in this place was filled with extraordinary life energy and spirit energy. The wood spirit girl quietly sat amidst the rainbow sea of multifarious flowers, her beautiful eyes listlessly staring into the distance. Once she sat down, it would be for the entire day, and sometimes she would not even react to Shen Xi's soft summons. During this period, this had been her daily routine. After she had heard the cruel truth from Xianxia that day, it was as if her heart and soul had fallen into a bottomless abyss that she could not escape from. Xianxia walked to the side of the wood spirit girl, but she made no reaction. A light breeze blew north, but the surrounding flowers and plants still bent towards the wood spirit girl, as they softly and gently soothed and comforted her battered and broken heart. Xianxia sat down rather forcefully, and he very nearly squashed his body against Ling as he sat down by her side. Ling finally made a reaction when their bodies touched, as her listless eyes unconsciously whirled towards him. But Xianxia instead looked into the distance, the same space which she had been staring listlessly into just moments before. He did not say anything to console her, but he suddenly gave a deep empathic sigh. This world is truly a mysterious one for it to actually have someone like Senior Shen Xi in it. Every time I look at her, I get seized by a feeling that this is all an illusion, the kind of feeling you get when you're faced with a heavenly celestial maiden. Xianxia's words and arrival caused Ling to regain some of her clarity. She softly replied, "Master was originally a celestial maiden anyways." Xianxia looked at her from the side and discovered that when she spoke, her eyes were listless and devoid of any vigor. In the short span of a few days, that pair of beautiful eyes, which had looked like jade stars to him when he had first laid eyes upon them, had become so dull and jaded that they made it hard for one to breathe. I not only owe Senior Shen Xi a debt of gratitude for saving my life, but she was also able to see through all the worries in my heart, and she took the initiative to ease those worries. Has Senior Shen Xi always been such a warm and gentle soul? He said with a faint smile. Amen, Ling gave a nod of her delicate head. Master is not only a celestial maiden, but she is also this world's most beautiful, most kind, and most gentle celestial maiden. Ah, Xianxia said with a look of shock on his face. You've seen Senior Shen Xi's true appearance? Amen. Ling's dainty head bobbed up and down once again, her voice still very soft, but you can't see it. Why not? Because... Ling's eyes finally regained a bit of life and color, but they still looked hazy to the point where it seemed as if she teetered on the edge of intoxication. If you gazed upon Master's true face, then this world would lose all of its color in your eyes. Those words completely stunned Xianxia. From many years ago, Master stopped allowing any man to see her true face, so it has been extremely long since any man was fortunate enough to gaze upon Master's appearance. Even if you want to see it, Master won't allow you to. But if you are really fortunate enough to gaze upon it, her tone and her gaze grew hazier as she continued, then it just might be that you won't be willing to spare me another look after that. Xianxia laughed as he shook his head. Ha, how is that possible? When Lin spoke to me about you for the first time, he told me that you were the most beautiful big sister in the whole wide world. And at that time, I didn't really believe him. But after I met you, I discovered that there was actually such a beautiful girl in this world. Ling looked at him before giving a tinkling laugh. The big sister that sent you here the other day, she was better looking than me. Is that so? Xianxia said innocently. Ling glanced to the side, gazing into the distance. I know that you are trying to console me. Sorry that I caused you and Master to worry about me, I'll be fine. It's just that. In front of Xianxia, she had worked so hard to look fine so as to not let him worry over her. But before she could finish speaking, her body and soul starting shuddering violently once again, and she could not stop it no matter what she tried. I just can't understand. What evil or wrong did our wood spirit race actually commit? For even the heavens themselves treat us like this. Just what exactly did we do that was wrong? She hugged her shoulders with both arms as she started to curl up into a tight ball. Your race didn't do anything wrong. None of you have ever done anything wrong. Xianxia softly consoled her. But he knew that his own words of comforts were extremely pale. Her delicate head was pressed between her knees as she softly said in a melancholic voice, Ever since I was young, royal father and mother told me that us wood spirits were a race that was protected by nature. As long as we were gentle, loving, and kind to everything and everyone, destiny would always take care of us in the end. As the memories of his short stay in the wood spirit's secret realm flooded his mind, he gave a gloomy sigh in his heart. Your wood spirit race is the most beautiful and kind race I have ever seen, even though all of you have been through far too much injustice and hardship. But in the future, I also firmly believe what your royal father and mother said. In the future, destiny will definitely take care of you and pay you back manyfold for what your race has been through. Heh! She shook her head very vigorously. That light gasp of hers seemed to be a laugh, but it was a laugh that was filled with incredible bleakness and pain. The future. Our wood spirit race, what future do we have? Xianxia instantly found it hard to breathe. The royal father and mother who told me those words are already dead. They used their lives to protect me, yet I could not even protect my own kinsmen, could not even protect Linger. The only survivor of the wood spirit royal family is me, a useless woman. It's already been completely destroyed. There is no future anymore, all of my kinsmen. All of the important members of my race, all of them are dead. Future, the future, she muttered to herself, each word boring a hole through the heart. Xianxia's brows jumped, and he suddenly discovered that he had completely misdiagnosed He Ling's condition. It was much worse than even he had anticipated. The bloodline of the royal family had been cut off. Her kinsmen were no longer in this world. She was left all by herself, and her heart was still plagued by the guilt and self-recrimination she felt because of He Lin's death and the severance of their bloodline. The beliefs that they had held on to dearly had led to the most tragic and miserable ending. The hope and expectations that they had always believed and harbored in their hearts had been completely destroyed, morphing into the darkest and gloomiest despair. Fate had truly been far too cruel to the wood spirit race. Even after he thought about it for a long time, he was not able to think of the right words to comfort her. Instead, Xianxia patted He Ling's shoulders while giving her a small smile. He Ling, at the very least, the wood spirit royal family did not truly die out. You are the last descendant of the wood spirit royal line, and even though you are a woman, the children you bear in the future will also have the blood of the wood spirit royal family running in their veins. So you need to live on and live well, as the last remaining hope of the wood spirit royal family. After that, you need to guide your entire race and wait for the day that destiny's protection is bestowed upon you all. Destiny, protection, she softly muttered. I already won't believe in such things ever again, Xianxia. She raised her delicate head up from between her knees. There were no tears in her eyes. There was just a dark gloom that would not fade away. She looked at Xianxia, looked at him for a long time before softly speaking with misty eyes. Can you call me big sister once? Xianxia had also been steadily looking at her, but he shook his head after that. I am not He Lin. He is already dead. He Ling's eyes closed as she spoke in a voice filled with pain. Are you so unwilling to give me just this little bit of illusion? Xianxia's eyes were gentle and deep. Perhaps you won't believe me, but I was once exactly the same as you are, and I had also been left with nothing, including all of my hopes and dreams. So I can understand your current feelings and emotions, and I also understand all too well that the only thing this sort of illusion brings is a temporary sense of comfort. But after that, it will lead to an even more intense pain. He Ling's gaze turned away from him, and she once again buried her delicate head between her knees. As he had been through a similar experience, Xianxia was indeed well aware of what He Ling's current mental state and heart were like. It was just that she was not only a pure and stainless wood spirit, she was also just a young girl, so she was naturally far less resolute and strong than he had been at that time. After a long period of silence, Xianxia opened his mouth yet again. He Ling, even though I am not He Lin from now on, I will be like He Lin and be part of your family. He Ling, even though I don't know what I can help you accomplish, at the very least, I will never ever harm you. In front of me, you can cry to your heart's content, and if there is anything you want to say, you can tell it all to me. The current He Ling was undoubtedly in the worst of conditions, so he hoped that his words would be able to allow her to let down her guard and vent everything that she was holding in her heart, even if it was just a little bit right now. But He Ling still did not give any response. Xianxia pondered the situation for a long time, and just as he was about to say something, He Ling suddenly said something in a soft voice. Her tone was very calm and cool, but the words that came out of her mouth were words that Xianxia had not expected at all. I want revenge. Xianxia's brows furrowed violently as an indescribably strong shock and disbelief jolted his heart. If one had lost all their kinsmen and had witnessed their entire race wither up and be scattered to the wind, It would be the most normal thing to feel the need for vengeance well up crazily on one's heart. But she was He Ling. She was a wood spirit. A wood spirit's body was filled with pure life energy, and they had an extreme degree of intimacy with nature. Their bodies, hearts and souls were all extremely pure, and they felt an extreme and natural repulsion towards anything that was wicked or evil. It was even less likely that they would be stained in fresh blood or involved in slaughter. Even if it was the most common plant or flower, they would still be unwilling to tread on it. These were the living creatures that were least likely to have the word, revenge, appear in their hearts and minds. In fact, one could go so far as to say they were the only creatures in the world that should never ever harbor this notion in their hearts. When He Lin had knelt in front of him and wept while begging Xianxia to take him as his student, it was also merely to protect his clansmen and to find his big sister. There was never a hint of vengeance involved in it. But he had very clearly heard the words, "I want revenge," from He Ling's mouth, and she had even managed to say it in such a calm and controlled manner. This kind of calm and control signified that it was not just a flash of emotion. Rather, this notion had started percolating in her head for the past few days. He Ling slowly raised her head to look at the stupefied Xianxia. The dark and gloomy light in her eyes grew even more dense, and those beautiful eyes, that had originally been as green as jade, had now turned a grayish green, a color that had perhaps never appeared in another wood spirit's eyes before. "Did Linner and the rest tell you who was the one who forced our entire race into desperate straits after causing the deaths of my royal father and mother?" Xianxia shook his head. "I don't know." Xianxi's brief moment of hesitance caused He Ling's eyes to violently ripple instead. In the next instant, she reached out a hand to grab Xianxia by the arm. "You know who it is, right? Tell me exactly who was the culprit." Xianxia shook his head yet again. "I really don't know. Moreover, they also had no reason to tell an outsider like me about such a thing." In actuality, when he had stayed in the wood spirit's secret realm, Qing Mu, who had given him a wood spirit orb, had told him that the people who had killed He Lin and He Ling's parents and forced their entire race into truly desperate straits had been the Brahma monarch god realm. This was a name that she could never truly take revenge on. So he was definitely not going to tell such a thing to He Ling at this point of time, because the reality of the situation was far too cruel, and it would only cause her to fall into an even deeper despair. "No, you definitely know, you definitely know." He did not know if she truly thought that he knew the answer or if she was merely grasping at the last straw that she had left. "Tell me, please tell me. Please, He Ling." Xianxia grabbed He Ling's shoulder as he said with knitted brows, "Just listen to me. Tell her she has the right to know." A voice that was light and gentle as a floating cloud suddenly rang out behind Xianxia. Shen Xi quietly stood at a place not too far away from them, but Xianxia had not sensed her arrival, nor did he know when she had come. Perhaps she had already heard everything that he and He Ling had said. "Master," He Ling softly muttered. She remained listless and despondent even in front of Shen Xi. His heart cried out in opposition, but Shen Xi's gentle words carried with them a magic that no one could resist. Xianxia sucked in a small breath before speaking. "In the place where He Lin and the rest were taking refuge, Senior Qing Mu told me that the people who had pursued all of you in the past had come from the Brahma monarch god realm." "Shen Xi?" He Ling's lips parted and froze in place. No matter how little she was aware of the world, SBE should also know what kind of existence the Brahma monarch god realm was. The head of the 4 king realms in the eastern divine region, a king realm that possessed enough strength to be ranked among the top 3 king realms in the entire god realm. But besides that, Senior Qing Mu did not tell me who it was from the Brahma monarch god realm, Xianxia said with a sigh. "Even though I don't really understand why Senior Qing Mu was willing to tell an outsider like me these things, I believe that he was not lying." "Brahma, monarch, god realm." He Ling softly muttered to herself with closed eyes. Her entire body was shivering as she said those words. Because he was practically squashed against He Ling's body, Xianxia could clearly feel her heart and soul rapidly sinking into a bottomless abyss of despair. "He Ling!" Xianxi's heart tensed up, and he already regretted telling her this truth. "Linger," Shen Xi's gentle voice rang out softly, "if you truly want revenge, then there is one person who can help you, and in this world, he is the only person who can help you." Those gloomy, beautiful eyes opened in the next instant. Xianxia was also incredibly stunned by those words, and he involuntarily asked, "Who, in this world, who had the strength and the guts to take revenge on the Brahma monarch god realm?" and who would actually help a wood spirit take revenge against an existence like the Brahma monarch god realm. What was even more inexplicable was this. Shen Xi was like a celestial being that had been banished from the heavens, someone who never involved herself in worldly affairs. So why would such a person say such things to He Ling? She actually clearly seemed to be encouraging and instructing He Ling on how to take revenge. He Ling knelt on her knees and kowtowed before Shen Xi deeply. "Master, please, share your guidance with me." "He Ling," Shen Xi sighed softly, "3 years ago you were as alone as a flying duckweed, but hatred had never touched you. So why is it that you're suddenly filled with hatred?" "That's because," He Lin replied wretchedly, "I still had hope and delusions back then. But now, everyone who told me not to hate, to not give up on hope, are dead. Now hate is the only thing I have left. Yuan-Chi, will you take revenge knowing that your worst enemy is the Brahma monarch god realm?" Shen Xi asked. He Ling slowly got up to her feet and stared at Shen Xi with eyes filled with hope and darkness. "Master, is there really someone who can help me?" Bathed in divine light, Shen Xi nodded slightly. "The Brahma monarch god realm is the strongest king realm there is in the eastern divine region. The depth of its roots and the immensity of its strength span far beyond your imagination, and no one has ever dared to provoke its wrath for the past millions of years. But there is one person who has the potential to unsettle the Brahma monarch god realm, and it so happens that he also has an undying grudge towards them that can only be resolved with death. If you will not change your mind, then it is my advice that you seek out his aid. Also, his chances of unsettling the Brahma monarch god realm will be much higher if you lend him your strength." Yuan-Chi, who is she talking about? Unsettle the Brahma monarch god realm? Does a person like this really exist in this world? He Ling couldn't understand what Shen Xi meant by his chances of unsettling the Brahma monarch god realm will be much higher if you lend him your strength. If the same line had come out of anyone else's mouth, literally no one would have believed it in the slightest. He Ling kowtowed once more. "Please tell me, Master, how do I find him?" Shen Xi didn't answer her directly. In a quiet voice she said, "You should know that you'll pay a terrible price for this." "I know." He Ling didn't hesitate at all. She knew very well that price was hardly an adequate word to describe what it would take to take revenge against the Brahma monarch god realm. "If I can take revenge, my wood spirit orb, my pride, my life, I can give up anything and everything." He Ling's assessment of herself was perfectly accurate. After losing all of her hope, belief, and even the future, she had nothing left but a well of hatred that grew like wild grass. "You have fallen into the abyss, and you have also lost sight of yourself. Therefore, I won't tell you his identity right now." Shen Xi walked forwards and pulled He Ling up to her feet gently. "You have 1 month. I want you to calm yourself down as best you can and consider what you really want to do in the future when your mind is at its clearest. If a month from now, your thirst for vengeance hasn't vanished, then I will tell you the identity of your helper. I will even bring him to you personally." Yuan-Chi, she was Shen Xi, her word was her bond. "Yes." He Ling didn't ask any further. Finally, tears started welling inside her pupils. "He Ling must have disappointed you, Master. He Ling will never forget about your great kindness, no matter what happens in the future." Shen Xi shook her head slightly. "You have not disappointed me. I am the one who promised to find your younger brother back then. I'm the one who has disappointed you." He Ling shook her head firmly. Her tears finally slid off the corner of her eyes. Shen Xi extended a hand and wiped away the tears on He Lin's cheeks softly. "You haven't slept for a very long time, He Ling. You should go sleep now. Only with a clear mind will you know where your true desire lies." "Yes, He Ling will obey the mistress." When Yuan-Chi had tried to console He Ling, he had failed to provoke anything but empty, mechanical replies from He Ling. But Shen Xi, with her inexplicable and even ill-advised words, had somehow recalled He Ling's soul back into her body and brought tears to her eyes. He Ling went away after that. It was true that she hadn't had any sleep for a very, very long time. "Senior Shen Xi," Yuan-Chi immediately voiced his doubts after He Ling's departure. "The promise you gave He Ling, do you truly wish for her to claim vengeance, or do you have something else in mind?" "What do you think?" She threw the question back at him. Yuan-Chi didn't hesitate in his answer. "I can't see any reason why you would encourage her to take revenge, Senior Shen Xi. Therefore, I believe you've probably predicted that she would give up her desire for revenge a month later. She is, after all, a wood spirit." "No," Shen Xi said, "she will not give up on her desire for revenge. On the contrary, her fixation will become stronger than ever before, precisely because she is a wood spirit." "But why?" Yuan-Chi did not understand. Shen Xi looked at Yuan-Chi before explaining. If we are to compare a person's heart to a piece of land, then yours will look like a land of green leaves, lush flowers, wilted grass, ancient trees, thistles and thorns, and poisonous vines. If someone were to plant a seed of darkness in this land, it will only be normalized by its surroundings after it grew. The possibility that it will change the landscape drastically is little. Xianxia. But He Ling's heart began as a pure land with nothing but lush greens and flowers. If someone were to plant a seed of darkness in a land like this, and give it the opportunity to take root, then it would grow swiftly and devour all of the greens, the flowers, and even the land itself in no time at all. Everything would become dyed in darkness, and nothing could stop or reverse its transformation. If she was purely good at the beginning, then she will become purely evil in the end. Xianxia looked shaken. He understood Shen Xi completely at this point. In fact, he had experienced the same thing himself. Since his life on Azure Cloud Continent, he already knew that the evil and hatred squeezed out of a formerly good person were usually worse than that of a born devil. Given the right circumstances, the purity of one's good could easily be the purity of one's evil. So, you were actually serious when you said those words? Yes. My encouragement for her to take revenge and the man I said could help her, they are all true. Shen Xi's voice was devoid of worry and perfectly calm as usual. At the very least, she will have a hope and a goal. They will keep her from spending an eternity in the abyss. Xianxia was silent for a very long time. His heart was in great turmoil. He had finally met He Lin's sister, and he had barely completed He Lin's final wish. But what came out of it was nothing either He Lin or him had wished to see. It shouldn't have turned out like this. Shen Xi turned away and was about to leave, but Xianxia shot her one final question. Senior Shen Xi, can you tell me who is that person who can take revenge for He Lin? Can he really unsettle the Brahma monarch god realm? Is he a realm king from a king realm? You will know the answer in a month's time. In the meantime, you should accompany He Ling during this time and learn the spirit flora of this place. You have the sky poison orb, so the knowledge will definitely be useful to you. Her melodious voice reached him, but Shen Xi herself had already vanished before him. Yes, Xianxia replied and turned around, but an unexpected thought suddenly gave him pause. How did she know that I have the sky poison pearl? A month passed by in no particular hurry. This might be the most peaceful period Xianxia had ever had since he came to the god realm. There were no dangers, no fights, no need to cultivate or tiptoe every step of the way. Every day he would bathe in the purest air and spirit energy, and accept Shen Xi's power to suppress the death-wishing mark. When he was free, he would study the spirit flora of this place from He Ling, who patiently explained to him everything he wanted to know. Recently, He Ling seemed to have returned to her old self. Her eyes were clear, her smiles were infrequent but present, and she had never brought up the word revenge again since that day. But the more He Ling acted normal, the more worried Xianxia only became. Every day, his realization that Shen Xi was correct only deepened more and more. The Brahma soul death-wishing mark had triggered a couple of times during the month, and it was still as painful as ever. But now he could chat and laugh with He Ling amidst the flowers, and not bat an eye. This pain was nothing compared to when the Brahma soul death-wishing mark was fully active. However, Xianxia never stopped doubting his future while he was still plagued with worries over He Ling. Do I really have to stay here for the next 50 years? Are Jasmine and Master still worrying over my well-being? King Yu's sudden departure and Shen Xi's words to her. What do they all mean? Also, Father, Mother, Yuer, Chai-Yi, Lingxi, Zuer, Linger. I can't go back until 50 years is up. I still can't go back even after 50 years has passed. Am I not going to see you all ever again? If he went back without regard for the consequences, he would only bring annihilation upon them all. What in the world should I do? It was early morning. A whole month had finally passed, and Xianxia had just gotten up from his bed with a stretch when he saw He Ling standing quietly in front of the jade-green bamboo house. Countless drops of morning dew was clinging to her verdant-colored hair. I knew it. Xianxia shook his head and walked next to He Ling. At the same time, the front door opened to reveal Shen Xi's transient figure. He Ling immediately collapsed to her knees and kowtowed, begging, Master, He Ling has thought through everything for the past month. My mind is set. Please help me, Master. Xianxia stood beside He Ling with a very complicated look on his face. Shen Xi didn't lift He Ling to her feet. She said gently, You should know that you will pay a terrible price for this. The price may very well be your life and soul. He Ling didn't hesitate in the slightest. Her voice was so calm that not a trace of sadness could be found anywhere. I'm willing to give up anything as long as I can take revenge. I will never regret my decision. Shen Xi nodded slightly. In that case, I will not dissuade you further. I grant you permission to leave any time you wish. Now about the person who can take revenge for you. He is none other than the man standing right next to you, Xianxia. Xianxia might not have uttered a word throughout the conversation, but that didn't mean that he wasn't listening closely. He was, after all, very curious to know who the man was that could unsettle the Brahma monarch god realm. That was why his knees had given out when he heard Shen Xi's declaration. He had almost collapsed right on top of He Ling. Xianxia flailed about as he steadied himself and gave a forced smile. Senior Shen Xi, it turns out that you also know how to crack a joke. Master! He Ling was also stunned by those words, bewilderment plain on her face. He Ling, Shen Xi gazed off into the distance. You can leave first. I have some things that I need to speak to Xianxia about. After a while, no matter what happens in this place, you are not to draw near, understood? Xianxia. Understood. He Ling got to her feet as she beat a quick retreat and left in a daze. Shen Xi turned around and returned to that small and mysterious bamboo hut. It was only after her body had crossed into the hut that her indistinct and dreamlike voice rang out in the air. Follow me inside. This bamboo hut was the only structure in the entire forbidden land of Samsara. Xianxia had been here for nearly 2 months, but he had never been allowed to enter before. In fact, he had never even come anywhere near this place. Moreover, it was not only him. Even He Ling, who had been here for 3 years, had never taken a step inside. So it was with astonishment in his heart that Xianxia lightly stepped into the interior of the bamboo hut. He had originally thought that even though this bamboo house looked very small on the outside, there would definitely be some vast independent world fixed on the inside, just like how Jasmine's Star God Palace was. But to his shock, it was actually a bamboo hut that could not be any more ordinary, and there was no space that was opened within its interior. It was designed and decorated in an extremely basic fashion, and there was only a jade-green bamboo bed that was laid in the center of the hut. Other than this, there was nothing else inside. As he stood behind Shen Xi, Xianxia's heart grew restless. This definitely was not the simple bamboo hut that it looked to be. It was Shen Xi's abode, a place where even He Ling was forbidden from entering. Whereas he was a person who she had made an exception for, someone who owed her a debt of gratitude for her act of removing the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. So why would she invite him into this place? Do you think that I am cracking a joke? She asked as she turned around. Actually, for Xianxia, he would actually prefer to face Shen Xi's back. The white glow enshrouded her body, and no matter whether it was her front or her back, he only ever saw an absolutely celestial beauty. But in the former case, even though he was unable to see Shen Xi's eyes, there was a subconscious feeling that manifested in his heart, a feeling that caused him to not dare to look at her directly for fear of profaning her. Even when he had faced Mu Xunian at that time, this feeling had not been as intense as it was right now. This junior does not dare to question Senior Shen Xi's words. It's just that. Xianxia unconsciously averted his eyes, but after thinking about for a good long while, he finally came up with something he thought was tactful. It's just that this junior's ability is too meager, so I'm afraid that I will not be able to shoulder such great expectations as the ones that Senior has for me. I will be able to shake up the Brahma monarch god realm. If it was not Shen Xi who was in front of him, but some other person, Xianxia would have long ago shot back with a, "You're not even joking anymore. You're just spouting complete and utter bullshit at this point." Xianxia's answer caused Shen Xi to let out an emphatic sigh. That sigh was very soft, but Xianxia could faintly hear the disappointment in it. "Do you know why I let Linger cool her heels for 1 month and I was only willing to tell her this today?" she asked. Xianxia shook his head. "That 1 month was not for Linger." She looked at Xianxia, and within that misty white light, no one could see the look in her eyes change. "It was for you." "Me?" "After 1 month's worth of time, the Brahma soul death-wishing mark on your body has been completely separated from your soul, blood, body, and muscles. From today onwards, as long as my power continues to flow into your body, it will not flare up anymore, and it will start to fade away bit by bit. It is just that the process of getting rid of it is rather long," Shen Xi said. During this period of time, the Brahma soul death-wishing mark hadn't flared up much at all, and every time it did flare up, the pain would clearly be less than the last time. Upon hearing Shen Xi's words, his heart and mind grew even more relaxed, and he spoke with a deep gratitude. "Senior Shen Xi, this Xianxia will never forget what you have done for me. It's just that, what does this have to do with He Ling? If He Ling had not thrown herself to the ground and wept while begging for you to stay that day, I would not have made an exception and allowed you to stay. So if that's the case, then the one who actually saved your life was He Ling, correct? Shen Xi said. Amen. He Ling is the same as Senior. The both of you are benefactors that I will owe a debt of gratitude to for the rest of my life, Xianxia said as he nodded sincerely. So helping her take revenge, that would be the best way you could repay her. Shen Xi softly said those words that definitely should not have come out of her mouth by the reckoning of the rest of world. The Brahma soul death-wishing mark was laid upon you by Xianxia Yinger. I believe that you will never be able to forget for the rest of your life just how much pain and suffering it has caused you. So now that you have formed this knot of resentment against her, you have also formed an unresolved enmity with the Brahma monarch god realm. So helping her take revenge is also helping yourself take revenge. Xianxia did indeed hate Xianxia Yinger in the extreme. She was the most dreadful and fearsome woman he had met in his life, and she was the only person who could truly make him helplessly wish for death if they crossed paths. However, the gap between him and Xianxia Yinger was simply far too great. Moreover, it was not just her he had to contend with. She was backed by the Brahma monarch god realm as well, the strongest king realm in the eastern divine region, a gigantic power in the god realm that no one had ever dared to anger. Shake up the Brahma monarch god realm. Take revenge against the Brahma monarch god realm. This was something that the other three king realms did not dare, nor were they even able to do in the first place, much less him alone. I really do want to take revenge, and if I could, there is nothing more I'd like to do than to first defile Xianxia Yinger. Cough, 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 cough. I meant that there is nothing more than I would want to do than to grind her bones into dust. But Xianxia shook his head. I'm only a small-time character who was born in the lower realms. I have no backing, I don't have any influence, and my own power is, compared to Xianxia Yinger herself, I don't even amount to a tiny ant, much less the Brahma monarch god realm that is as vast as the heavens themselves. So, I am completely unable to understand Senior's words. If one wanted to look at it strictly, it was not that he did not have any influence or organization backing him up, because he did belong to a sect in the god realm. But comparing the divine ice phoenix sect to the Brahma monarch god realm was like comparing the light of a firefly to the light of the sun at high noon. Furthermore, he definitely would not drag the divine ice phoenix sect into this mess. Xianxia had finished speaking, but Shen Xi did not respond for a very long time. Within that dreamy white light, Xianxia could faintly sense that Shen Xi seemed to be quietly looking at him. This bizarre silence continued for a long time before Shen Xi suddenly asked, "If I could fulfill one wish of yours right now, what would be the first thing that you'd think of?" After he thought about it for a little bit, Xianxia said, "I would want to return to the world where I was born." The white light faintly pulsed, and following that came another sigh. This time that sigh was even more drawn out, and the disappointment that accompanied it was even more palpable. Why is it that the first thing you thought of was not to possess a power that would cause the entire universe to bow their heads, a power that no one could defy? As such, you would be able to realize any wish that you wanted to realize. You would be able to obtain anything you wanted to obtain. You would be able to go anywhere you wanted to go, and no matter what you did, you would not need to worry at all. Xianxia was stunned by those words for a moment before he shook his head and said, "This is indeed a fantasy that any person would have, but in the end, that's merely a fantasy. The one thing I want the most right now is to return to the world where I was born. Before I went to the god realm, I swore that I would quickly return. If not, they will think that something has happened to me over here, causing them an untold amount of hurt and worry." It was less than 2 years from now to the latest date he said he would return. Instead, he was trapped in this place, and not only was he unable to return, he did not even dare to send any news of himself back either. To those other people, that is indeed a fantasy that will never ever be realized. But do you really think that for you who holds the divine power of a creation god, this is really just a fantasy? She asked, soft and gentle voice. Xianxia was taken aback by those words, and his expression also changed slightly. Shen Xi continued in a soft voice, "I know all of the secrets that you possess. This includes your evil god legacy, your sky poison pearl, your dragon god soul, and your devil slayer sword." Xianxia's pupils faintly contracted as his entire body violently shuddered. All of the most important secrets of Xianxia's body had been said one after the other by Shen Xi. It felt as if all the clothes had been stripped off his body, and he was standing stark naked in front of Shen Xi, as all of his secrets were visible for her to see. "Did King Yu tell you these things?" Xianxia's heart tensed up as he involuntarily asked that question. But once he spoke those words, he quickly overruled it. Even though King Yu had found out about his evil god divine power from the mouth of Xianxia Yinger, she did not know about the existence of the sky poison pearl, the dragon god's soul, or the devil slayer sword. The only one who truly knew about his possession of the dragon god's soul or the devil slayer sword was Jasmine. Even Mu Xunian was unaware of this. Why did she know with such detail? Could it be that her heart and soul could truly see through everything? You don't need to be shocked, and you have even less reason to be anxious, Shen Xi said in a soft voice. I won't covet anything that you possess, and I definitely won't harm you. This junior owes senior Shen Xi a great debt of gratitude for saving my life, so naturally, you won't harm this junior, Yun Qi said, but his heart was shaking intensely, and it was hard for him to calm down. There is no need to doubt the strength of the Brahma monarch god realm, nor will anyone dare to do so in the first place. It can be said that it is the strongest star realm controlled by the human race. Furthermore, its strength isn't something that has existed for a short period of time. Ever since the day it became a king realm, it has been the strongest star realm in the eastern divine region, and to this very day, not a single star realm has been able to shake it from its position. Even the eternal heaven ancestor, who possessed the heart of glazed glass in those years, the eternal heaven realm that she led has not been able to surpass the Brahma monarch god realm in any era. The so-called concept of how every flow has its ebb has never happened to do the Brahma monarch god realm. Do you know why the Brahma monarch god realm is so strong, and how it has always maintained such strength? Yun Qi shook his head. He had been no more than a rookie for his entire 3-year stint in the god realm, so the understanding he had of the Brahma monarch god realm could be said to be extremely limited, because every single person in the Brahma monarch god realm, from the least powerful profound practitioners to the Brahma monarch realm king, all of them are possessed of an incomparably strong ambition. An ambition towards the profound way, an ambition towards status, an ambition towards power and influence. Furthermore, this is also the conviction and belief that have motivated each and every generation of the Brahma monarch god realm. Ambai, Tian, Yun Qi's eyebrows twitched. He had heard Mu Xunian say this before, that every person in the Brahma monarch god realm were completely and utterly enthralled and obsessed with the profound way. The entire god realm had heard of this phrase, and it was also a fact. That phrase was, there are definitely no useless people from the Brahma monarch god realm. Whether it comes to looks, the profound way, influence, and status, Xianxia Yinger could be said to be standing at the pinnacle of humanity, or even the pinnacle of all the existences within this universe. But despite reaching such heights, she has never once stopped striving. In fact, she has started trying to break through these limits with all of her strength. In order to achieve this, she has spared no effort, used whatever and whoever she could use, and she has been willing to brave any and all risks. During these years, she has also been the person who has entered the god realm of absolute beginning the most. Yun Qi, why did she make a move against you? And why did she not hesitate to inflict you with the Brahma soul death-wishing mark? Shen Xi continued. It was because you possess something that she craved, something that can fulfill all her ambitions. The divine power of a creation god, the heavenly profound treasure, the sky poison pearl, the true soul of the primordial dragon god. All of these things are things that people on the level of Xianxia Yinger long for even in their dreams, but might not ever get even after trying to obtain them their entire lives. Yet all of these things are concentrated in your body, and you can actually tell me that these words to you are merely a fantasy. Shen Xi's words stirred Yun Qi's soul, but they had not moved it too intensely. His chest rose and fell, and his eyes rippled, but his voice remained calm. Senior Shen Xi, I understand everything that you are saying, and I am also well aware of what possessing all of these things means. But in the end, I am not Xianxia Yinger, nor do I want to be the same kind of person as her. Furthermore, the things that I possess have indeed given me a new lease on life and allowed me to gain much, but at the same time, they also brought to me untold calamities, just like right now. So there were many times that I wished that I were more normal, so I would not have to scamper around and hide like a defeated dog, finding it hard to even see the light of day. These words came from the bottom of Yun Qi's heart, even though he had become truly unrivaled in the profound sky continent. In the end, it had been an accomplishment that he had not sought. It had definitely never figured into his initial thoughts. He gave a self-mocking laugh. The words that this junior is saying has surely caused senior much disappointment. Shen Xi gave a small shake of her head. Yun Qi, you are indeed someone who stands out from the masses. You clearly have the strongest aptitude and talent in the mortal world, yet you just so happen to lack the ambition that you should rightly have." The words that Shen Xi said were actually nearly exactly the same as the words that Xia Qingyu had said to Mu Xunian. Every year there are countless profound practitioners who ascend to the God realm. Perhaps they wanted to see a wider world, or perhaps they are chasing an even higher profound way. But the moment they find their footing in the God realm, and find themselves in a plane that was higher than any other plane that they had been on, and they reach an even higher vantage point, they don't hesitate to abandon everything that they had before. Even if it is their parents and friends, their spouses and children. They would not only be able to rid themselves of all distractions, but get rid of anything that might tie them down or hold them back. However, you have never once thought of abandoning anything. On the contrary, this still remains the greatest concern within your heart. This is your greatest weakness and flaw, and perhaps also your greatest merit. Furthermore, this is something that probably won't change for your entire life, correct? These words caused Xianxia to nod his head with no hesitation. To abandon everything I had in the past to pursue an even higher level and profound way, this is something that I won't ever be able to do in this life or even the next. That is fine as well, Shen Xi said with a light nod of her head. One's mental state is not something that can be changed so easily, and true ambition can never be birthed from the advice of other people. As for the matter of helping He Ling take revenge on the Brahma monarch God realm, we won't discuss this for now. Xianxia did not know how to respond in that moment. Shen Xi had brought him to this place and had said some extremely strange things to him, and up to now, he still had not divined her true motive. At this moment, Shen Xi suddenly did something that he did not expect at all. She stretched out a soft arm that was even more beautiful than the moons and the stars, and lightly tapped a finger against her chest. Under Xianxia's completely dumbfounded gaze, the white light that had always been shrouding Shen Xi's celestial figure soundlessly and slowly disappeared. Shen Xi had not revealed her true features to others for an untold number of years, and until this day, Xianxia had thought that he would never ever see her true appearance. But all of a sudden, it was completely and utterly revealed to him right before his very eyes. It felt as if his soul had been fiercely smashed by something, as if there was a loud explosion that engulfed everything in that instant. He stood there completely and utterly dazed. He did not say anything, nor did his expression change, and even his eyes were completely fixed in place. It was as if time had suddenly stopped. There were no other decorations, and there was no luster of jewels or pearls, and she was wearing nothing more than a simple and ordinary pure white long robe. Her long hair reached her waist. It had not been combed or tied up in any way. It merely splayed out over her shoulders and across her back, releasing a soft and gently luster. It was as if everything that surrounded him had completely vanished, as Xianxia's mind had gone completely blank. The only thing that was left was that celestial countenance that was even more illusory than a dream. There was no other light, and there was nothing he could think of saying either. It was as if all of the beautiful colors and words, and even the most beautiful illusions, were mere pale shadows in front of that celestial mien. Her eyes seemed to hold an entire limpid blue lake, yet at the same time they seemed to be bottomless holes which would swallow up anything or anyone. But these were abysses that anyone would step into gladly, even if they had to stay there forever. Xianxia had never so strongly believed that he was dreaming as much as he believed it this day, because he was unable to believe that there actually existed such an absolutely beautiful celestial countenance in this entire universe. "I am pretty," she softly asked. A celestial voice that was even more soft and gentle than a cool breeze or a floating cloud rang out in the air, causing Xianxia to even more intensely believe that he was in an illusory dream. "Pre-TTY?" he said in a dazed voice. No matter whether it was his soul or his eyes, they had been completely captivated by her. It was as if he had been sucked into a fantastical illusion that he was unable to leave, an illusion that he was willing to stay within forever. Then, Shen Xi slowly walked towards him, stopping merely half a step away. She was within arm's reach, and her indescribably beautiful lips let out an alluring and dreamlike celestial voice. "Then don't you want to push me down, tear off all my clothes, and do with me as you please?" Shen Xi's faint and indistinct celestial voice was like a demonic butterfly that flitted through a fantastical illusory world, a demonic butterfly that had begun to dance and flutter in his heart and soul. What was she saying? What was she saying? It was an auditory hallucination. It must have been an auditory hallucination. Even if it was not an auditory hallucination, it must also definitely be some sort of test. From the first moment Xianxia laid his eyes on Shen Xi, he had felt that she was a woman who had been born among the cloud peaks, a woman who did not belong to this mortal realm. She had lived while shunning the world, never getting involved in the mundane world. Her temperament was detached but gentle, and she was a woman of few words, but every time she opened her mouth, a faint celestial voice that soothed one's heart and soul would ring out in the air. Her celestial appearance, for all intents and purposes, was a cut above the rest of the world, and even the legendary celestial maiden Guang Han would at most merely measure up to her beauty. Even given his wild and untamable manner, he would always show Shen Xi the utmost respect whenever he was facing her. He did not even dare to look at her directly for fear of disrespecting her. No matter whether it was his eyes or his thoughts, there was absolutely no inappropriateness or profanity when it came to her. Because he acknowledged that in Shen Xi's eyes, he was no more than a mortal creature that she had shown mercy to and saved, a mortal creature that could not be any more ordinary. Someone who perhaps was essentially no different from the bugs, plants, and flowers that inhabited this place. But the Shen Xi of just a few seconds ago had dealt him such a great blow that it had very nearly toppled all the convictions and beliefs that he had held about her. Her features were extremely beautiful as any celestial mean, and it was so beautiful that it completely transcended any and all fantasies that he had before. It even transcended his very knowledge and understanding. Even though he had not lived a very long life, he had experienced many girls and women whose appearance could topple nations, whose beauty was so breathtaking that it robbed the soul of anyone who looked at them. But he had never met a woman who could cause a person's willpower to dissolve into nothingness within an instant, and it was the complete and utter breaking of one's spirit at that. She was so beautiful that she could well and truly be called one of those temptresses that brought calamity to the world. She was like a person who should not exist in this world. Her features were celestial and beautiful, and likewise, they were also things that should not have existed in the mortal world. The moment she revealed her countenance, she dealt an incomparably huge shock to Xianxia's heart and soul. Her voice still remained as soft and cottony as it usually was, yet it was also a low and bewitching voice that sounded like the recital of a beautiful and ancient poem, an enchanting sound which stole the soul of anyone listening. He was simply unable to bring himself to believe that those words actually came out of Shen Xi's mouth, and that it had actually been said to him in such a blunt and naked manner. An auditory hallucination. It was definitely an auditory hallucination. He unconsciously bit the tip of his tongue, and a clear wave of pain radiated out from it. But this pain also managed to stir up the willpower that had been completely blown away by Shen Xi's appearance. He used nearly all the strength he had to close his eyes and turn his body around. It felt as if the dreamscape had been dispersed, as Xianxia could once again sense reality and the world around him once more. He gasped heavily after that. He had been holding his breath this entire while, as he had forgotten to even breathe. Her beauty was simply far too terrifying. It was just as He Ling had said. It could wipe out all of the color that a person usually saw in his life. It could cause a firm and resolute man to willingly submit to oblivion, even if he had to die thousands of times over. Perhaps even the legendary duo, Dragon Queen and Goddess, were not able to compare to her, because in the end, the Dragon Queen and the Goddess were still existences that belonged to the mortal plane, but she was someone who existed outside of this world, or one could say that she even existed outside of all fantasies. After taking a few more heavy gasps of air, Xianxia's heart and mind had regained some clarity and composure. He badly wanted to turn around and willingly be swallowed by that absolutely beautiful illusion which devoured all of a person's consciousness. Yet he also did not dare to turn around, as he was afraid that he would truly sink into oblivion forever. He forced himself to forget the last thing that Shen Xi had said, and used all of his strength to divert his attention elsewhere before he finally spoke in a firm manner. "Senior Shen Xi, I am indeed not too interested in acquiring power that reaches across the universe and cannot be defied, and I also have never deliberately sought after the pinnacle of the profound way. So when you say that I have no ambition, I do admit that. But you don't understand me either. Even though I do indeed lack the ambition that Senior described, it does not mean that I have no goals or pursuits, and it means even less that I will be a coward and live in fear. On the contrary, I have always been a person who always takes revenge. If I had sufficient strength, I would have already paid Kyanai 10 times over for what she did to me. It's just that the difference between the two of us is simply far too vast. The current me cannot take revenge, nor can I help He Ling take revenge. That is the most basic form of self-awareness. Furthermore, compared to the grudge I have against Kai and I, it is a far more important matter for the current me to figure out a way to get back home, and it's also a far more practical goal. If he truly abandoned everything he had in the profound sky continent and the illusory demon realm, he would indeed no longer be bound by anything, and he would truly be free of all worries and distractions. Furthermore, his world would grow even bigger, and his growth would become even faster. But to ask him to become someone like Kai and I just for the sake of becoming unrivaled under heaven, and just for the sake of vengeance, he would rather die than do so. And that was how he had always been. A shade of shock appeared in Shen Xi's beautiful eyes, and it was not because of what Xianxia had said. Rather, she was shocked that Xianxia could actually regain such clarity and focus in such a short amount of time, and that he could actually pronounce each word with a steely resoluteness. She said in a soft and gentle voice, "You are the person who is most qualified to possess ambition in this world, yet you do not. Even though it is a pity, it isn't something that is altogether bad either. That is no longer important. Like I previously said, the matter of He Ling's revenge will be a topic for another day." She lightly took half a step forward, and because the two of them were already extremely close, that small half step nearly caused Shen Xi's towering bosom to come into contact with Xianxia's back. A finger that was still covered in a dull white glow was slowly raised up before pressing against Xianxia's back, and that already soft and gentle voice became even more silky and cottony. "What I desire to know right now is how much courage you have. Do you truly not want to rip my clothes to shreds?" The sensation of her jade finger touching his back was very, very light, yet it carried with it an irresistible magic, and it caused both his body and soul to go completely limp. Just now, he could still tell himself that it was an auditory hallucination, but there was no way to deny it this time around. Xianxia's brain stalled completely as both of his eyes went blank, and the conviction and will he had barely pulled together with great difficulty were once again smashed into smithereens. He had never been so dumbfounded at any point in either of his lives, and even he did not know how long he remained in that stupor before he finally managed to say 3 words with much difficulty. "Why are you AI?" Shen Xi's gaze was light, and she let out a sigh. However, Xianxia, whose back was facing her, was unable to admire just how dewy and fantastically beautiful her eyes were. She said in a melancholic voice, "A woman that all men under heaven desire, even in their dreams, is standing right in front of you, and telling you that you can do whatever naughty things that you desire with her. Yet your response is merely those 3 words which completely ruins the mood. Xianxia, it looks like it's not only ambition that you lack. You also don't have a sufficient amount of boldness or daring. It is no wonder that girl called Xia Qingyu wanted to leave you behind to face Kai and I on her own." Xianxia's eyes immediately started to intensely focus. The words that Shen Xi had just said had viciously agitated his pride and dignity. The corner of his eyebrows twitched as he whirled around. The Shen Xi that filled his vision still gave him an illusory feeling that he had entered some sort of dreamscape, but his eyes now contained a viciousness that had been birthed by her provocation. His right hand suddenly thrust out violently as he very nearly snarled, "Do you really think that?" Just as he was about to say to complete the sentence, "Do you really think that I do not dare to?" Xianxia's entire body went completely stiff. The palm that he had swiftly thrust out had landed heavily on Shen Xi's chest, and his fingers, which had been spread out wide, deeply burrowed into that supple and soft jade flesh. Xianxia had been stunned by this turn of events, completely and utterly stunned at that. He had originally believed with all of his heart that Shen Xi was intentionally provoking him for a reason that he was not yet aware of, perhaps as some sort of test. And he had also firmly believed that this incomparably audacious and extremely indecent action of his would definitely be dodged by her. There was absolutely no reason or possibility for her to allow him to take advantage of her. Yet his hand had solidly grabbed onto her bosom with great force. A sensation which threatened to steal and captivate his soul was being transmitted from his palm with incomparable clarity as it spread through his entire body. Xianxia's entire body seemed to have turned to stone as his eyes grew fixed in place and did not move a single inch. And he even forgot to remove that offending hand as well. Shen Xi had not dodged, nor did she presently attempt to struggle free. Her absolutely beautiful celestial mien was not colored with the slightest hint of anger, and her eyes had grown misty. a mistiness which was extremely moving. Amid Yun Qi's stupor, she actually raised her jade arm to touch Yun Qi's neck as an alluring, cottony, and seductive voice came from those cherry-colored lips. "Is this the limit of your boldness?" Ah. Yun Qi's vision started growing more and more narrow. It contracted one last time, and after that his hand finally eased its grip. But he did not withdraw this arm. Instead, he grabbed onto the corner of her robe and fiercely ripped his arm downwards. In an instant, her plain white robes had been completely torn asunder. Amidst the flying fragments of cloth, Shen Xi's jade body, which was as perfect as a miracle bestowed by the gods, was completely exposed. It seemed as if her entire body was being bathed in gentle moonlight as a soft and supple light that resembled a halo made out of moonlight, spread across her fragrant shoulders. It flowed along her snowy skin and traced the outline of her collarbone and the two incredibly smooth and sleek half-globes that hung right below it. Two proudly towering and perfectly rounded snow-white mountains hung in the air as flowing light, that glowed like white jade, traced the perfect arc formed by those towering peaks. That light flowed down the curves of her enchanting and bewitching waist until it reached her powdery white and lustrous jade thighs. He did not respond to this sight with any words. Instead, a fire seemed to boil up in every part of Yun Qi's body. He fiercely hurled himself towards Shen Xi as he pressed her down against the bamboo bed behind them. Shen Xi, she looked as sacred and otherworldly as a goddess. Yet if the current her were to suddenly turn seductive and alluring, a simple look from her would be enough to overturn whatever will and rationality any man had. There was still some bewilderment and rationality remaining in Yun Qi's heart. But the moment he heard a faint and dreamy moan tumble from Shen Xi's lips, the only thing burning in his eyes was the most ardent desire he had ever felt in both of his lives. To hell with rationality. He resembled a starved wolf in heat as he threw himself against her body with a force that could nearly be described as violent. A hand directly raised up those beautiful legs, which were as supple as jade as his body pressed down on hers. Shen Xi's towering and silky breasts drew arcs of absolute beauty in the air as she shook. Her celestial body did not reject him, but her pair of beautiful eyes did not contain a single hint of desire. They also did not contain any disgust or rejection. They were only covered with a mistiness that grew more and more hazy with each passing second. From morning until noon, and then until evening. He Ling, who had many things weighing on her heart, had been quietly standing amidst the flowers. But an entire day had gone past, and she still had not heard or seen any activity from Shen Xi or Yun Qi. She would definitely not disobey Shen Xi's instructions, so she quietly waited where she was, and she did not take a single step towards that small green bamboo hut. The most perfect jade body in this world also happened to belong to the only otherworldly goddess whom even he did not dare to think of defiling. Yet this very goddess was currently pressed down beneath his body, and he was free to defile her in whatever manner he pleased. This feeling was simply far too intense, and it caused a person to become far too enraptured in it. As a result of that, Yun Qi practically morphed into some crazed wild beast as he spent an entire day and night venting his lust on Shen Xi's body. He exerted so much effort that it was as if he hated that he could not die from making love to her. It was a wonderful feeling that could not be described, a stimulant that words could not do justice to. It was as if he had returned to his past life in the Azure Cloud continent when he had first made love to Su Linger. This continued until a certain time when he limply fell on top of Shen Xi's body and hurtled headlong into a deep sleep. The world finally grew peaceful again. Shen Xi lightly pushed Yun Qi off of her body as she slowly got to her feet. This originally incomparably pure small bamboo hut, that had always belonged to her and her alone, was now a complete mess as nasty fluids had splashed all over the place. Even the air itself was filled with a completely lascivious aroma. It was simply far too dense. Even the fresh fragrance of the plants and flowers in this place could not get rid of it in a short amount of time. Shen Xi stood up, white light flashing across her body. After that, all the things that soiled her body were immediately removed, and she once again wore a plain white robe that was simple and elegant in the extreme. Her beautiful eyes were like limpid blue lakes, and not a single ripple could be seen within them. Amidst the peace and quiet, she raised her hand and looked at the pure white light that flashed from her palm. She quietly stared at it for a long period of time before she finally whispered, "As expected. As such, I have also finally."